In the ancient days, when the world was young and the gods walked among mortals, there stood a city upon the banks of the great Euphrates River. Uruk, they called it. Uruk of the mighty walls. Uruk of the cedar gates. A city so magnificent that its splendor reached even to the heavens, where the gods themselves took notice. And ruling over this jewel of civilization was a king. Not just any king, but one who was two-thirds divine and one-third mortal. His name was Gilgamesh, son of the goddess Nin's son and the mortal king Lugalbanda. He was the most beautiful of men, the strongest of warriors, the wisest of rulers. Or so it was said. But beauty without compassion is cruelty. Strength without mercy is tyranny. And wisdom without humility is merely pride dressed in clever words. Listen now, and hear the tale of how a tyrant became a hero, how a god learned to be human, and how the search for immortality led one man to discover what it truly means to live. This is the epic of Gilgamesh. Another dawn. Another day of torment. Quickly hide your son. The king's soldiers are coming down the street. Hide him where? There's nowhere in all of Uruk beyond the reach of Gilgamesh. He takes our sons for his building projects. Works them until their backs break and their hands bleed. And for what? So he can raise yet another temple to his own glory? Hush! Do you want to lose your tongue for speaking against the king? What does it matter? He has already taken everything else. My brother died building his walls. My father was crushed beneath the stones of his ziggurat. If I must lose my tongue for speaking truth, then so be it. The truth is dangerous in Uruk. The truth is that our king, for all his divine blood, has forgotten what it means to serve his people. He thinks only of his own magnificence, his own desires, his own eternal name. Every day he claims the right of the first night with new brides. Every day he takes the young men from their families to labor on his monuments. Every day the people of Uruk suffer under the weight of his ambition. But who can stand against him? He is stronger than any 10 men. His sword arm never tires. His will cannot be broken. The gods themselves placed a crown upon his head. Then perhaps the gods have forgotten us. Perhaps they no longer hear the cries of their people. The gods hear everything. But whether they care to answer is another question entirely. In the palace of Uruk, Gilgamesh stood upon his terrace, looking out over the city that trembled at his name. The morning sun caught his hair, turning it to gold. His eyes, dark and piercing, surveyed the streets below with the detached interest of a farmer examining his crops. My lord Gilgamesh, the new wall section is complete, 30 cubits high, strong enough to withstand any siege. Your name shall live forever in these stones. Good. Tomorrow we begin work on the eastern expansion. I want towers at every corner, each one taller than the last. Let all who approach Uruk know the power of its king. My lord, if I may speak freely, the people are growing restless. The labor is hard, and many have died in your service. Perhaps if we could slow the pace of construction, allow the workers time to rest and return to their families. The people are restless? Let them be restless. A dog that is too comfortable forgets its master. The work will continue at the pace I set, not the pace that pleases the weak and the lazy. Of course, my lord, I meant no criticism. It is only that some among the priesthood have suggested that the people's discontent might displease the gods. They have been praying for relief. The gods gave me this strength, this beauty, this divine right to rule. If they are displeased, let them come and tell me themselves. Until then, I rule Uruk as I see fit. Now leave me. I have no patience for the whining of priests and peasants. As you command, my lord. Gilgamesh turned away from the city, entering his great hall. The walls were covered in gold leaf, the floors inlaid with lapis lazuli. Trophies of his hunts hung everywhere. The head of a great lion, the hide of a wild bull, weapons taken from defeated enemies. Everything spoke of power, of conquest, of a man who had never known defeat. But in the quiet of his chamber, alone among his treasures, Gilgamesh felt something he would never admit to his courtiers, something he barely admitted to himself. He felt empty, bored, unchallenged. What use is strength when there is no one worthy to test it against? What use is power when everyone already kneels? What use is immortal fame when each day feels the same as the last? He walked to a golden mirror and studied his reflection. Perfect, flawless, divine, and utterly, terribly alone, far above the city, in the celestial realm where the gods held council. The prayers of Uruk's people had not gone unheard. In the great hall of the heavens, Anu, the sky god, father of all gods, sat upon his throne of stars. Around him gathered the divine assembly. Great Anu, the people of Uruk cry out for justice. Their king, Gilgamesh, has become a tyrant. He takes their sons for his endless building projects. He claims their daughters for his pleasure. The city groans under his rule, and still he demands more. Gilgamesh is my grandson, born of divine blood. His strength is our gift. His rule is by our design. But he has forgotten that with divine power comes divine responsibility. He treats his people as slaves, not subjects. He thinks only of his glory, never of their welfare. The prayers of Uruk rise to us like smoke, choking the very air of heaven with their desperation. What would you have me do, Shamash? He is 2/3 God. To destroy him would be to destroy part of ourselves. I do not ask that you destroy him, mighty Anu. I ask that you humble him, teach him, give him something he has never had before. And what is that? An equal, someone who can match his strength, challenge his pride, and show him what it means to be truly human. You speak of creating another like him, another Superman to plague the earth? No, Shamash. I speak of creating his opposite, his mirror, his balance. Aruru, goddess of creation, mother of life, stepped forward from the assembly. She was ancient beyond measure, her eyes holding the wisdom of the first clay and the first breath. I know what must be done. I who shaped the first humans from the clay of the earth. I shall create one more. Not a king, but a wild man. Not civilized, but pure. Not corrupt with power, but innocent as the beasts of the field. He shall be Gilgamesh's equal in strength, but his opposite in all other ways. And you believe this wild man can change Gilgamesh's heart? I believe that only in finding his equal can Gilgamesh learn humility. Only in finding a true companion can he learn compassion. Only in risking loss can he learn the value of what he has. Then let it be done. Create this wild man. Let him be called Enkidu, and let the fates decide what shall become of both king and beast when they finally meet. I shall go to the wilderness, to the edge of the world where humanity has not yet trespassed. There, from the pure clay untouched by civilization's hand, I shall shape him. He will be as strong as Gilgamesh, as beautiful, as mighty. But he will know nothing of cities, nothing of kings, nothing of the cruelty that power breeds. He will be innocent. Aruru descended from the heavens, traveling to the far steppes beyond the reach of Uruk's walls. There, where the grass grew wild and the animals ran free, she found a spring of clear water bubbling up from the earth. She knelt beside it and reached into the mud. Her hands moved with the skill of Aeons, shaping the clay with divine precision. She formed the muscles of a warrior, the body of a hero. But into this form, she breathed not the spirit of conquest, but the spirit of the wild. Not the hunger for power, but the hunger for freedom. Not the desire to rule, but the desire to run. As the sun set on that distant steppe, Enkidu opened his eyes for the first time. He stood, testing his limbs, feeling the strength that flowed through them. The gazelles came to drink at the spring, and they did not flee from him. The lions came to hunt, and they did not attack him. He was part of the wilderness, neither predator nor prey, but something in between, something new. He ran with the herds. He drank from the streams. He knew no language but the language of wind and water, of howl and roar. He knew no law but the law of the wild. He was free in a way that Gilgamesh, for all his power, had never been and could never be. And so they lived, the king and the wild man, each unaware of the other's existence. Gilgamesh in his palace of gold, surrounded by luxury, yet starving for meaning. Enkidu on his steppe of grass, surrounded by simplicity, yet rich in purpose. But the gods had set events in motion, and soon their paths would cross. Soon the tyrant and the innocent would meet, and in that meeting, both would be changed forever. The wheels of fate were turning. The epic of Gilgamesh had truly begun. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. Enkidu grew stronger, wilder. more at home in the wilderness than any creature born of nature. He freed animals from the traps of hunters. He filled in the pits they dug. He tore down their snares and scattered their nets. The hunters grew frustrated, then angry, then afraid. My traps are empty again. Every single one. This is the third week I've returned with nothing. My family will starve. It's not bad luck, you fool. It's that wild man. That creature who runs with the herds. I've seen him with my own eyes. Hair covering his entire body, long as a woman's. Strength like nothing I've ever witnessed. He ripped apart my strongest trap with his bare hands as if it were made of grass. A wild man. Are you drunk? There are no wild men in these steppes. I swear by Shamash, the sun god, I speak the truth. He drinks with the gazelles at the watering holes. He grazes with the cattle. The lions treat him as one of their own. He is not quite animal, not quite human. He is something else entirely. Then what are we to do? If we cannot hunt, we cannot eat. If we cannot trade furs and meat, we have nothing to bring to market in Uruk. We must go to Uruk. We must tell the king about this creature. Perhaps Gilgamesh will send soldiers to capture or kill it. And if soldiers cannot stop this wild man, what then? Then we pray the king has another solution. Because I have none. The hunters journeyed to Uruk, their wagons empty, their spirits broken. They were granted an audience with Gilgamesh, though they had to wait 3 days for the privilege. When finally they stood before the throne, they trembled not just from fear of the king, but from exhaustion and hunger. My lord Gilgamesh, we come seeking your help. There is a creature in the wilderness, a wild man who destroys our traps and frees our prey. Without the hunt, we cannot survive. Without furs and meat to trade, we have nothing to offer your great city. A wild man, you say? How interesting. Describe him to me. He is tall, my lord, as tall as you. His body is covered in hair, long and matted. His strength is enormous. He runs with the speed of the gazelles and has the power of the wild bulls. He lives among the animals as one of them, drinking from their waters, eating their grasses. He speaks no human language, knows no human ways. Gilgamesh leaned forward on his throne, his eyes gleaming with sudden interest. For the first time in months, something had caught his attention, something unexpected, something that might relieve the crushing boredom of his divine existence. This wild man, he is strong, you say? As strong as me? We cannot say, my lord, but stronger than any mortal man we have ever seen. And he is untamed, uncivilized, knows nothing of our ways. Nothing, my lord. He is more beast than man. Then perhaps it is time he learned what it means to be human. I will send someone to civilize him, to draw him away from his animals and bring him to Uruk. And when he arrives, we shall see if he is truly as strong as you claim. My lord, who could possibly civilize such a creature? He flees from human contact. He trusts only the animals. Send for Shamhat, the temple priestess. If anyone can tame a wild beast and make him into a man, it is she. The temple of Ishtar stood at the heart of Uruk, a monument to the goddess of love and war. Within its sacred walls, priestesses served the goddess through ritual and devotion. Among them was Shamhat, known throughout the city for her beauty, her wisdom, and her understanding of the mysteries that bridge the divine and mortal worlds. She was summoned to the palace, where Gilgamesh explained his plan. You want me to go into the wilderness and seduce a wild man? To use the sacred arts of the goddess to domesticate him like some animal? Is that not what civilization is, Shamhat? The domestication of our wild nature? The transformation of beast into human? You serve Ishtar, the goddess who embodies both savage passion and refined love. If anyone can show this creature what it means to be human, it is you. And what do you gain from this, my lord? Why do you care about one wild man disrupting hunters? Because I am bored, priestess. Because every day is the same. Because there is no one in all of Uruk who can challenge me. No one who is my equal. These hunters say this Enkidu is as strong as I am. I want to see if that is true. I want to meet him. Fight him if necessary. But first, he must be brought into the world of men. That is where you come in. You wish to fight him. Is that all this is to you? Another conquest? Another trophy for your walls? What else is there, Shamhat? What else but conquest and glory? What else but strength and power? You sound like the priests with your talk of meaning and purpose. I deal in realities, not philosophical abstractions. Then perhaps this wild man will teach you something, my lord. Perhaps he will show you that there are realities beyond conquest. But I will do as you ask. I will go to the wilderness and bring Enkidu into civilization, not for your amusement, but because I am curious to see what kind of man can live free of all that you represent. Go then. Take supplies and guides. Find this Enkidu at his watering hole. Do what you must to civilize him. And when he is ready, bring him to Uruk. I will be waiting. Sham had left the palace with a mixture of reluctance and curiosity. She gathered supplies, accepted an escort of the hunters who had seen Enkidu, and set out for the wilderness. The journey took several days, traveling far beyond the fields and farms that surrounded Uruk, out into the true wild where civilization's hand had never touched. They made camp near the watering hole where Enkidu was most often seen. For 3 days they waited. On the 4th day, at dawn, the animals began to gather. First came the gazelles, delicate and cautious. Then the wild cattle, massive and powerful. And among them, running with the same grace and naturalness, came Enkidu. Sham had gasped when she saw him. The hunters had not exaggerated. He was magnificent, tall and powerfully built, his body covered in thick hair that had never known a blade. His movements were fluid, animal-like, yet there was something unmistakably human in his face, in his eyes. He was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with civilization standards. He was pure, untouched, free. There he is. That is Enkidu. Now, priestess, how will you approach him? He will flee if he sees us. I will not approach him. Not yet. Let him drink. Let him be at peace with his animals. When the time is right, I will know. They watched Enkidu throughout the day. He drank from the stream, his face lowered to the water like the deer beside him. He ate grasses and fruits. He played with young gazelles, wrestling gently as siblings might. As the sun began to set, the animals dispersed, and Enkidu remained by the water, settling down to sleep beneath the stars. Now, leave me here. Return to your camp. Come back in 3 days. 3 days? Priestess, you cannot stay here alone with that creature. It's not safe. I am a servant of Ishtar. I fear nothing, and I must do this alone. He will not accept civilization from a group. He must choose it himself, and that choice must be born from desire, not fear. Now go. The hunters reluctantly departed, leaving Shamhat alone by the watering hole as darkness fell. She removed her traveling cloak, revealing the fine garments of a temple priestess. She let down her hair, black as the night sky, and walked quietly toward where Enkidu lay sleeping. She did not touch him. Not yet. She simply sat nearby, close enough that he would sense her presence when he woke, but not so close as to threaten. And she waited. Enkidu's eyes opened as the moon rose. He sensed something different, something that did not belong to his world. He sat up quickly, alert, ready to flee. And then he saw her. He had never seen a human woman before, had never seen clothing, jewelry, the elaborate styling of civilized beauty. But something in him recognized her as something. Not prey, not predator, something else entirely. Something that called to a part of him he had never known existed. Shamhat did not move. She simply looked at him, her eyes steady, calm, inviting without demanding. She began to speak, though she knew he could not understand her words. But words were not the point. The sound of her voice was the point, the melody of human speech, the first bridge between his world and hers. Peace, wild one. Peace. I mean you no harm. I come not to trap you or hurt you, but to show you something, to give you something. A gift you do not yet know you want. Enkidu tilted his head, his expression curious. He did not flee. The sound of her voice intrigued him in a way the sounds of animals never had. There was complexity in it, pattern, meaning beyond the simple calls of the wild. You are strong. I can see that. Strong and fast and free. But you are also alone, are you not? The animals accept you, but you are not truly one of them. You are something between, neither beast nor man. How lonely that must be. She moved slightly closer. Enkidu tensed, but did not run. She reached out her hand, slowly, as one might to a wild horse. He stared at her hand, at the pale skin so different from the rough hides of animals. Slowly, cautiously, he reached out his own hand. Their fingers touched. In that moment, something changed. Some ancient part of Enkidu's mind awakened. The part that was human, that had always been human, but had never been called forth. He felt the warmth of her skin, saw the intelligence in her eyes, and knew somehow that he was meant for more than running with gazelles. Shamhat smiled. And then, under the stars, she began to teach him what it meant to be human. Not with words, for he had no language yet, but with presence, with touch, with the sacred mysteries that the goddess Ishtar had given to humankind. She showed him desire that went beyond instinct, connection that went beyond survival, beauty that went beyond function. For 6 days and 7 nights, Enkidu learned. Shamhat taught him tenderness and passion, patience and joy. She taught him that humans were not simply another type of animal, but something unique, something capable of creating meaning in a meaningless world. On the 7th day, Enkidu tried to return to his animals. He ran to the watering hole where the gazelles drank, where the cattle grazed. But when they saw him, they fled. When he tried to keep pace with the gazelles, his legs would not carry him as fast as before. When he tried to drink with the cattle, they backed away, sensing he was no longer one of them. Something had changed. He had changed. The wild no longer recognized him as its own. Enkidu returned to Shamhat, confused, almost grieving. She held him as he struggled to understand what had happened. You cannot go back, wild one. You have tasted knowledge now. Awareness. You have become conscious in a way the animals are not. You are human now, truly human, and there is no returning to innocence once it is lost. She began to teach him language. Simple words at first. Water, food, sky, Sunday moon. His mind, sharp and untainted by civilization's distractions, learned quickly. Within days, he could understand basic speech. Within weeks, he could speak it himself. What am I now? Not animal, but not like you either. You are Enkidu. You are a man. And now that you are a man, you must learn to live as men do. Not in the wilderness, but in cities. Not with animals, but with people. Come with me to Uruk. I will show you the world of civilization. I will show you what humanity has built. Uruk. What is Uruk? It is a great city, the greatest in all the world. It has walls that reach to the sky, gates of cedar wood, temples of gold. It is ruled by a king, the strongest man in the world. His name is Gilgamesh. At the sound of that name, something stirred in Enkidu. Some recognition, though he had never heard it before, as if his soul had been created with that name already written upon it. Gilgamesh. I must meet this Gilgamesh. You will. That is why I came to find you. But first we must prepare you. You cannot enter Uruk looking like a wild beast. Come, let me cut your hair. Let me dress you in proper clothing. Let me teach you to eat bread instead of grass, to drink beer instead of stream water. Let me make you into a man who can walk the streets of Uruk without causing fear. And so began Enkidu's final transformation. Shamhat cut his hair, though it pained him to feel the weight of it fall away. She brought him clothing, and though it felt strange and confining, he learned to wear it. She taught him to eat cooked food, and though it tasted odd at first, he learned to enjoy it. She taught him to drink beer, and he found he liked it very much indeed. But most importantly, she taught him about civilization, about laws and customs, about right and wrong, good and evil, about the complex web of obligations and relationships that bound humans together. She told him about kings and subjects, about the powerful and the weak, about those who ruled and those who suffered. And she told him about Gilgamesh, about his strength and his beauty, his pride and his cruelty, about how he oppressed his own people, taking what he wanted without thought for the suffering he caused. As Enkidu listened, something hardened in his chest, a feeling he had never experienced in the wilderness. Anger, moral outrage, the sense that something was wrong and must be made right. This Gilgamesh, he takes brides before their husbands can have them. He forces men to work until they die. He cares nothing for his people's suffering. It is the way of kings, Enkidu, the way of power. Those who have it use it. Those who lack it suffer. This is the world of men. No, this is not right. In the wilderness, the strong do not torment the weak without reason. The lion kills the gazelle for food, not for sport. Nature is cruel, but it is not unjust. This Gilgamesh is unjust. What would you do about it? He is the strongest man in the world. Even if you have strength to match his, he has skill, training, the weapons and armor of a king. Then I will learn these things too. And when I am ready, I will face him. I will stop him from his cruelty. I will show him that strength is not the right to oppress, but the duty to protect. Sham had looked at this man she had drawn from the wilderness, this innocent who had learned language and law in mere weeks, and she smiled sadly. She had been sent to civilize him, to tame him, to bring him to Gilgamesh for the king's amusement. But in teaching him to be human, she had given him something Gilgamesh had never possessed, a sense of justice. Then come to Uruk. Meet this king who thinks himself above all others. And let us see what happens when two who are equal in strength finally face one another. They began the journey to Uruk, Enkidu growing more human with each passing mile, yet somehow more than human as well. He had the strength of the wild and the conscience of civilization. He had never been corrupted by power because he had never possessed it. He had never learned cruelty because he had never needed it. When finally the walls of Uruk appeared on the horizon, massive and imposing, Enkidu stopped and stared. He had never imagined anything so large, so complex, so utterly alien to the simple beauty of the wilderness he had known. This is Uruk. This is what humans build when they gather together. Is it not magnificent? It is overwhelming. So much stone, so much effort. Why? Why do humans need such walls? To keep out enemies, to show their power, to declare to the world that they are strong, that they matter, that they will not be forgotten. The animals need none of this. They live and die and are forgotten, and they are content. But humans are not content with simple living and dying, Enkidu. We need meaning, purpose, legacy. We need to matter, even if only to ourselves. That is both our greatest strength and our deepest curse. They entered through the great gates of Uruk, and Enkidu saw civilization in all its glory and all its squalor. The markets bustling with trade, the temples reaching toward heaven, the palaces of the rich and the hovels of the poor, the beauty and the injustice existing side by side, inseparable. And in the streets, he heard the people talking about their king, talking about Gilgamesh. The king will take another bride tonight, the daughter of the merchant Tabni. The wedding was to be tomorrow, but Gilgamesh has invoked his right as king to lie with her first. That poor girl, that poor family. But what can they do? To refuse the king is death. Someone should stop him. Someone should stand up to his tyranny. Who can stand against Gilgamesh? He is 2/3 God. He has never known defeat. Enkidu heard these words, and the anger in his chest became a fire. He turned to Shamhat. Where is this wedding? Where will Gilgamesh claim this bride? Enkidu, what are you planning? Justice. I am planning justice. Take me there. You cannot fight Gilgamesh. You have only just learned to be human. You know nothing of combat, of strategy, I know what is right and what is wrong. I know that the strong should not prey upon the weak. Take me there, Shamhat, or I will find it myself. Reluctantly, Shamhat led him through the streets to the house, where the wedding ceremony was to take place. A crowd had already gathered, some celebratory, most simply resigned. This was how things were in Uruk. This was the price of having a divine king. And then, through the crowd, came Gilgamesh, tall, beautiful, radiant with power and confidence. He walked as if the very stones of the street were honored to bear his weight. His eyes swept over the crowd with casual indifference, seeing subjects, not people, seeing possessions, not souls. He reached the door of the bride's house and raised his hand to push it open. And that was when Enkidu stepped forward, placing himself in the doorway, blocking the king's path. For the first time in his life, Gilgamesh found his way barred. He looked at this stranger, this man who dared to stand before him, and surprise flickered across his perfect face. Move. You stand in the way of your king. I stand in the way of injustice. This woman is not yours to take. Her husband awaits her. Her family has prepared for celebration, not for your satisfaction. Find your pleasure elsewhere, King of Uruk, or go without it tonight." The crowd gasped. No one spoke to Gilgamesh this way. No one dared. Shamhat pushed forward, terrified of what would happen next. The king stared at Enkidu, and something stirred in his eyes. Not anger, not yet, but recognition. Interest. The same interest he had shown when the hunters first told him of the wild man. "You must be Enkidu, the wild man from the steppes. Shamhat has done her work well. You look almost civilized, but your manners need refinement. Step aside, or I will move you aside. Try. One word. Simple. Direct. A challenge that could not be ignored." And for the first time in years, Gilgamesh smiled. A real smile. Not the smirk of superiority he wore for his court, but the genuine smile of someone who had finally found what he had been seeking. "Very well, wild man. Let us see if you are truly my equal." They crashed together like mountains colliding. The force of their impact sent shock waves through the street. Stone cracked beneath their feet. The crowd scattered, screaming in terror and excitement. Shamhat watched in horror and awe as the two strongest men in the world grappled with each other, neither giving ground, neither able to gain advantage. They fought through the street, destroying market stalls, cracking walls, leaving a path of destruction in their wake. Gilgamesh used every technique of combat he had ever learned, every trick of leverage and timing. But Enkidu fought with the instinct of the wild, unpredictable and relentless. They were perfectly matched. For every move Gilgamesh made, Enkidu countered. For every hold Enkidu attempted, Gilgamesh escaped. The fight raged on, neither able to overcome the other, both realizing with growing amazement that they had finally found their equal. And then, as they grappled in the doorway of the bride's house, something strange happened. They looked into each other's eyes, these two men who were more than men, and they saw themselves reflected back. They saw their own strength, their own pride, their own desperate loneliness. And slowly, incredibly, they began to laugh. The laughter started small, then grew until both men were shaking with it, their grips on each other loosening, their combat transforming into something else, something that had nothing to do with conquest and everything to do with recognition. They released each other and stepped back, both breathing hard, both grinning like children who had finally found a playmate their own age. "You are strong, wild man, stronger than anyone I have ever faced. And you are strong, king. But strength is not the right to do whatever you wish. Perhaps, perhaps not. But tell me, Enkidu, when have you ever felt so alive as in these moments of combat? When have you ever felt so completely yourself? In the wilderness, running with the herds, free of laws and obligations. Then you understand. We are the same, you and I, too strong for the ordinary world, too alive for its petty rules. We are meant for something greater than domesticity and duty. No, we are different. You use your strength to take. I would use mine to protect. Pretty words. But you enjoyed our fight. Do not deny it. You felt the joy of testing yourself against a worthy opponent. That is what life is truly about, Enkidu. Not morality, not justice, but the pure experience of being fully alive. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps I didn't enjoy it. But I still will not let you take this bride. That is not worthy combat. That is not strength. That is merely cruelty." Gilgamesh stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head and laughed again. "Very well, wild man. Keep your bride. I find I have lost interest in her anyway. You have given me something far more valuable. What is that? A friend, a companion, an equal. Come to my palace. Drink with me. Eat with me. Stay in Uruk. Be my brother, and together we will do great things. Things worthy of our strength." Enkidu looked at Shamhat, who nodded slowly. He looked at the crowd, who stared in amazement at what had just occurred. He looked at the bride's house, where the family cowered in fear and relief. And finally, he looked back at Gilgamesh, at this beautiful, terrible, lonely king who had just offered him friendship. "Very well. I will come to your palace. I will be your companion, but I will also be your conscience, Gilgamesh. I will remind you that strength brings responsibility. That power should serve, not oppress. We shall see, my friend." We shall see. And so the two strongest men in the world walked together through the streets of Uruk, followed by an amazed crowd and one priestess who wondered what she had unleashed upon the world. The tyrant and the innocent, the king and the wild man, now bound together by recognition and respect. Neither knew it yet, but this was the beginning of a friendship that would shake the foundations of heaven and earth, a bond that would ultimately teach them both what it truly meant to be human. For better and for worse, their fates were now intertwined, and nothing would ever be the same again. The months that followed were unlike anything Uruk had ever seen. Gilgamesh and Enkidu became inseparable, brothers in all but blood. The king's palace rang with their laughter, their contests of strength, their endless conversations that lasted deep into the night. And slowly, subtly, Gilgamesh began to change. He no longer claimed the first night with every bride. He reduced the labor demands on his people. He listened, truly listened, when Enkidu spoke of justice and compassion. The people of Uruk, who had lived in fear for so long, began to hope that perhaps their king was becoming the ruler they had always needed. But peace, for men like Gilgamesh and Enkidu, was not enough. They were too strong, too restless, too hungry for meaning to be satisfied with the quiet administration of a city. They needed challenge. They needed purpose. They needed something worthy of their extraordinary abilities. It was on a warm evening, as they sat on the palace terrace looking out over the city, that Gilgamesh first spoke of the cedar forest. "Enkidu, my brother, do you ever feel that we are wasting ourselves here? That we are meant for greater things than settling disputes over water rights and judging petty crimes? Every day I feel this, Gilgamesh. In the wilderness, every moment was vivid, alive, purposeful. Here, even with all this luxury, I sometimes feel as if I am slowly dying of comfort. Then let us leave this comfort behind. Let us do something that will be remembered forever, something that will prove our strength and win us eternal fame. What do you propose?" "The cedar forest. You have heard of it. I have heard whispers. A sacred forest far to the north, where the gods planted cedars at the beginning of time. But it is forbidden to mortals. The gods placed a guardian there, a demon named Humbaba, to protect the trees from human greed." "Exactly. Humbaba. They say he is a monster, a creature of pure terror. His voice is the storm, his breath is fire, his roar is the flood. The gods made him to be invincible, to ensure that the cedar forest remains untouched forever. And you wish to kill this creature? To defy the gods themselves? I wish to bring cedar wood to Uruk. I wish to build gates that will last forever, that will show all future generations the glory of our age. And yes, I wish to test myself against something truly dangerous. What good is strength if it is never challenged? What good is courage if it is never tested? Gilgamesh, the gods placed Humbaba there for a reason. The cedar forest is sacred. To cut down those trees, to kill that guardian, would be to insult the divine order itself. The gods gave me my strength. They made me 2/3 divine. If they did not want me to use that strength for glory, why did they make me this way? Besides, the people need cedar. It is the finest building material in the world, and the nearest cedar groves are controlled by our enemies. If we could bring cedar from a sacred forest, Uruk would become even greater than it already is. You speak of the people's needs, but I hear only your own need for glory. This is not about cedar wood, Gilgamesh. This is about you trying to prove you are greater than the gods themselves. Perhaps, or perhaps it is about proving I am worthy of the divine blood that flows in my veins. What is the point of being 2/3 God if I live like a mere mortal? Come with me, Enkidu. Let us face this Humbaba together. With your strength and my skill, we cannot fail. We can fail. We can die. Humbaba has killed every hero who has ever challenged him. The path to the cedar forest is littered with the bones of the brave and the foolish. But none of them were us. None of them had our strength, our bond, our determination. Together, brother, we can do what no one has ever done before. Together, we can become legends. Enkidu stood and walked to the edge of the terrace, staring out at the stars. He thought of the wilderness, of the simple clarity of life among the animals. He thought of how civilization had complicated everything, adding layers of ambition and pride, and the endless hunger for more. But he also thought of his love for Gilgamesh, his brother in all but blood, and he knew he could not let him face this danger alone. If I agree to this madness, you must promise me something. We do this not for glory alone, but for Uruk. We take only what cedar we need. We do not desecrate the forest out of spite or arrogance. We show respect even as we defy. Agreed. We will be heroes, not vandals. We will kill Humbaba, take the cedar we need, and return to Uruk in triumph. The people will sing of our deeds for 1,000 years, or they will sing laments for our foolishness. But very well, Gilgamesh. I will go with you to the cedar forest. I will stand by your side against this demon. But know that I do this not because I believe it is right, but because I will not let you die alone. That is all I ask, brother. That is all I have ever asked. Your companionship, your strength beside mine. Tomorrow we begin preparations. We will commission weapons and armor from the finest craftsmen in Uruk. We will make offerings to the gods and seek their blessing, even as we defy their prohibition. We will gather supplies for the journey, and when all is ready, we will set out to face our destiny. The next morning, Gilgamesh announced his plan to the city. He called an assembly of all the elders, the priests, the craftsmen, and the people. In the great square before his palace, he stood and proclaimed his intention. People of Uruk, I, Gilgamesh, your king, will journey to the cedar forest. I will face the demon Humbaba and bring back cedar wood for our city. With this cedar, we will build gates that will last forever, monuments that will show all the world the glory of Uruk and the courage of its king. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered, caught up in the boldness of the plan. Others murmured in fear and concern. The elders stepped forward, their faces grave. My lord, this is madness. No one who has entered the cedar forest has ever returned. Humbaba is invincible. The gods themselves made him to guard those trees. To challenge him is to court certain death. All my life, I have heard about what cannot be done, about limits and caution and the proper place of mortals. But I am not merely mortal. I am the son of Nin Sun, the goddess. I am 2/3 divine. If I do not test the boundaries of what is possible, what is the point of my existence? There's more to life than glory, my lord. There's wisdom, governance, peace. You have become a good king these past months. Do not throw that away for the sake of pride. I will not be a good king. I will be a great king, a legendary king. And legends are not made by sitting safely behind walls, no matter how mighty those walls may be. The decision is made. Enkidu and I will go to the cedar forest. Pray for our success if you wish. Mourn our folly if you must. But do not try to stop us. The elders bowed and retreated, knowing argument was useless once Gilgamesh had set his mind to something. But one woman pushed through the crowd, making her way to the front. It was Nin Sun, Gilgamesh's mother, the goddess who had taken mortal form to be with her son. My son, I have heard your plan. Come to the temple. Let us speak privately. Gilgamesh and Enkidu followed Nin Sun to the temple of Nin Sun, where she served as high priestess. Inside, away from the crowd, she turned to face them, her divine nature visible in the subtle glow that surrounded her. Gilgamesh, you have your father's courage and your mother's pride. But pride can be a poison as much as a gift. Why must you do this? Why must you risk everything for cedarwood? Because I must know, mother. I must know if I am truly as great as everyone says. I must know if my strength means something, or if I am just an accident of birth, a freak of nature with no real purpose. Your purpose is to rule Uruk, to protect its people, to build something that lasts beyond mere fame. Is that not enough? No, it is not. Not for me. I need to test myself against the ultimate challenge. I need to know that I have earned my place in history, not simply inherited it. Nin Sun turned to Enkidu, her expression softening. And you, Enkidu? You are wise beyond your years, despite your short time among humans. Why do you encourage this folly? I do not encourage it, goddess. I oppose it, but I will not let Gilgamesh face it alone. He is my brother, my friend. Where he goes, I go, even if the path leads to death. Nin Sun closed her eyes, and a single tear ran down her divine face. Then I cannot stop you, but I can give you my blessing and my protection. Kneel, both of you. They knelt before her, and she placed her hands upon their heads. Divine light flowed from her fingers, surrounding them with warmth and power. I cannot make you invincible. I cannot guarantee your victory. But I give you this: clarity of mind, steadiness of heart, and the protection of a mother's love. Shamash, the sun god, watches over heroes and travelers. I will pray to him to guide your path and light your way through the darkest parts of the forest. Go, my sons, but go carefully. And come back to me. Please come back. We will, mother. I promise. They rose and left the temple, their determination only strengthened by Ninsen's blessing. The craftsmen of Uruk worked day and night to forge weapons worthy of the journey. They created axes of bronze and iron, swords that gleamed in the sunlight, armor that was both strong and light. Each weapon was blessed by priests, inscribed with prayers and protective symbols. When all was ready, Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood at the gates of Uruk, their supplies gathered, their weapons secured. The entire city had turned out to see them off. Some threw flowers, others wept. All wondered if they would ever see their king again. Shamhat pushed through the crowd to stand before Enkidu. She looked at him with eyes full of concern and love. You have come so far from the wild man I found at the watering hole. You have learned language, law, love. Do not throw it all away in the cedar forest. Come back, Enkidu. Come back to the world of humans. You have only just joined. I will try, Shamhat. But if I do not return, know that I died as a man, not as an animal. Know that I died for friendship, for loyalty, for something greater than survival. That is worth more than a long life of safety. You speak like a hero from the old songs. But those songs are sung for the dead, not the living. I prefer living men to dead heroes. As do I. Which is why we will fight with everything we have to survive. Take care of Uruk while we are gone. Make sure the people remember us kindly, whether we return or not. They embraced, and then Enkidu joined Gilgamesh at the head of their small expedition. They had chosen not to bring an army, only a handful of servants to carry supplies. This was to be a test of their own strength, not a military campaign. Gilgamesh raised his hand, and the gates of Uruk swung open. Beyond lay the road north, toward the distant mountains, toward the sacred cedar forest, toward destiny. Are you ready, brother? No, but let us go anyway. They walked through the gates, and Uruk fell away behind them. The journey had begun. For many days they traveled north, crossing rivers and plains, climbing foothills and traversing valleys. The land grew wilder, more remote, more beautiful and terrible with each passing mile. They saw villages that had never heard of Uruk, people who lived simple lives far from the complications of civilization. At night, they would make camp and talk around the fire. Gilgamesh spoke of glory and legacy, of how their names would echo through eternity. Enkidu spoke of home and friendship, of the life they had left behind and hoped to return to. They were so different, these two, yet so perfectly matched. On the seventh night, as they camped at the foot of the mountains that guarded the cedar forest, Enkidu had the first dream. He woke gasping, his heart racing, his body covered in cold sweat. Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh, I have dreamed something terrible. What did you see? A mountain. It fell upon me, crushing me beneath its weight. I struggled but could not escape. And then, just as I was about to die, someone appeared. He took my arm and pulled me free, standing me upon my feet. I could not see his face clearly, but I think it was Shamash, the sun god. Your mother's prayers have reached him. This is a good dream, brother. The mountain represents Ambaba. He will crush us beneath his weight, but Shamash will save us. We will survive and triumph. Or it means that we will be crushed, and only divine intervention will save us from complete destruction. Either way, it suggests we face terrible danger. Of course we face danger. That is the point. Without danger, there's no glory. Without risk, there is no reward. Sleep, Enkidu. Tomorrow we enter the mountains. We will need all our strength for what lies ahead. But Enkidu could not sleep. He lay awake, staring at the stars, wondering if he would ever see them again after tomorrow, wondering if perhaps the animals of his former life had been wiser than the humans he now called kin. Animals did not seek glory. They sought only to live, and perhaps that was enough. Morning came too quickly. They broke camp and began the ascent into the mountains. The path was steep and treacherous, winding through canyons and over ridges. They climbed for hours, the air growing thinner, the temperature dropping, the world below shrinking to a distant memory. And then, as the sun reached its zenith, they crested a final ridge and saw it, the cedar forest. It stretched before them like a green ocean, covering the mountainsides as far as the eye could see. The trees were enormous, ancient beyond reckoning, their trunks as wide as houses, their branches reaching toward the sky, like the pillars of heaven. The air was thick with their scent, clean and sharp and intoxicating. Birds sang in the canopy, unseen but ever present. A mist hung over the forest, giving it an otherworldly quality, as if it existed halfway between the mortal realm and the divine. It is beautiful, more beautiful than I imagined. Beautiful and terrible. Can you feel it, Enkidu? The power in this place? The ancientness? The gods are close here. Very close. I feel it. And I feel something else. A presence. Watching. Waiting. Humbaba. Yes. He knows we are here. Then let us not keep him waiting. Come, brother. Let us enter the cedar forest and meet our destiny. They descended into the forest, leaving the sunlight behind. The canopy above was so thick that only a dim green twilight filtered through. The silence was profound, broken only by their footsteps and the occasional bird call. Every tree seemed to watch them. Every shadow seemed to hide something. They walked for hours, penetrating deeper into the sacred forest. The trees grew larger, older, more twisted into shapes that seemed almost intentional, almost conscious. This was not a natural forest. This was a garden of the gods, and they were trespassers in a place where humans were never meant to walk. Gilgamesh, I do not like this. Something is wrong. The forest is too quiet. Where are the animals? Where are the insects? Everything is watching us, but nothing moves. Stay alert. Keep your weapon ready. Humbaba could appear at any moment. And then, as if summoned by his words, the voice came. It was not a human voice. It was the voice of thunder and earthquake, of avalanche and flood. It came from everywhere and nowhere, shaking the very air with its power. Who dares enter the cedar forest? Who dares trespass in the garden of the gods? Speak, mortals, before I crush you like insects beneath my feet. Gilgamesh stepped forward, his hand on his sword, his voice steady despite the terror that threatened to overwhelm him. I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, son of Nin's son, 2/3 divine. I come to claim cedar wood for my city. I come to test my strength against yours, Humbaba. Show yourself, guardian. Face us if you dare. A laugh rolled through the forest, deep and terrible and utterly without humor. Face you, little king, little demigod. I have been guarding this forest since before your city was even a dream. I have killed heroes greater than you. Your divine blood means nothing here. You will die screaming, and your bones will fertilize the roots of my cedars. Then come and make good on your threat. We are not afraid of you. But that was a lie. They were afraid, terribly afraid, because now they could see him. Humbaba emerged from the forest, and he was nothing like they had imagined. He was not a beast or a monster in the simple sense. He was something else entirely, something that should not exist, something that hurt to look at. His body was massive, covered in scales like a dragon and fur like a beast. His face was a nightmare of twisted features, with too many eyes, too many teeth, too many angles that bent in directions that should not be possible. His breath came in gouts of flame and smoke. His roar shook the trees and sent birds fleeing in terror. He was the embodiment of nature's fury, of divine wrath, of everything wild and terrible and beyond human control. And he was advancing on them, his massive hands reaching out to crush them, to end their lives, to add their bones to the countless others that littered the forest floor. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood side by side, weapons raised, hearts pounding, knowing that the battle of their lives was about to begin. Everything they had trained for, everything they had prepared for, came down to this moment. This enemy, this impossible, terrible, divine enemy that they had no real hope of defeating. But they had each other. And sometimes that is enough. Sometimes love and loyalty and the refusal to abandon a friend can accomplish what strength and skill alone cannot. They would find out soon enough. Humbaba charged, and the world exploded into violence and chaos. The battle for the cedar forest, the battle that would determine their fate, and the fate of Uruk, the battle that the gods themselves were watching with bated breath, had finally begun. And in that moment, Gilgamesh and Enkidu discovered something they had never known before. They discovered what it truly meant to face death together, to fight not for glory or fame, but simply for the right to live, to return home, to see another sunrise. They discovered that heroes are not made in safety, but in terror, not in certainty, but in desperate, impossible odds, not in the glory of victory, but in the courage to stand and fight when every instinct screams to flee. The cedar forest echoed with the sounds of battle, and the gods leaned forward on their thrones to see what would happen next, because even they did not know if these two mortals, these two friends, these two brothers in all but blood, would survive the day. The outcome was not written. The future was not certain. Everything hung in the balance, and the only thing that was clear was that nothing would ever be the same again. Humbaba's first blow came like a falling mountain. His massive fist crashed down where Gilgamesh and Enkidu had stood a moment before, splintering ancient cedars, cratering the earth. The two heroes rolled in opposite directions, coming up with weapons drawn, circling the demon like wolves stalking prey far larger than themselves. Enkidu, take his left side. Drive him toward the clearing. We need space to maneuver. He is too fast for something so large. Watch his breath. It burns like the sun. Gilgamesh charged, his bronze sword singing through the air. The blade struck Humbaba's scaled hide and rang like a bell, doing no damage. The demon's backhand caught Gilgamesh across the chest, sending him flying through the air to crash against a cedar trunk. The impact would have killed a normal man, but Gilgamesh was not normal. He shook his head, tasted blood, and charged again. Enkidu attacked from behind, his axe biting into the back of Humbaba's leg. The demon roared and spun, faster than anything that size should move. His tail, which they hadn't even seen before, whipped around and caught Enkidu in the ribs, hurling him 20 feet through the forest. Foolish mortals! You cannot harm me. I am eternal. I am invincible. The gods made me to be the perfect guardian, and you are nothing but insects beneath my notice. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu had learned something in their months together. They had learned to fight as one, to anticipate each other's movements, to create opportunities where none existed. As Humbaba focused on Gilgamesh, Enkidu attacked. As the demon turned to swat Enkidu away, Gilgamesh struck. They were tireless, relentless, refusing to give ground, refusing to give up. The battle raged for hours. The forest around them was destroyed. Ancient cedars toppled like grass, the earth torn and scorched. Gilgamesh's armor was dented and torn. Enkidu bled from a dozen wounds. But Humbaba, for all his power, was beginning to slow. The demon had fought alone for centuries, had faced heroes one at a time, had never encountered two opponents who worked together so perfectly. You fight well, mortals, better than any who came before. But you grow tired. I can see it, feel it. Soon your arms will fail, your legs will buckle, and then I will tear you apart and scatter your pieces across my forest. Perhaps, but not yet. Not yet, demon. Gilgamesh saw an opening. Humbaba had overextended. His massive weight shifted forward. He signaled to Enkidu with his eyes, a silent communication born of perfect trust. Enkidu understood instantly. He charged at Humbaba's legs, throwing his entire weight into the demon's knees. At the same moment, Gilgamesh leaped, using a fallen cedar as a springboard, launching himself at Humbaba's head. The demon stumbled, caught off balance for the first time. Gilgamesh's sword found its mark, driving into one of Humbaba's many eyes. The demon screamed, a sound that shook the mountains, that sent avalanches tumbling in the distance. He clawed at his face, momentarily blind, staggering backward. Now Enkidu. Now while he cannot see. Together they attacked with everything they had left. Their weapons found gaps in the scales, weak points in the armor-like hide. They moved like dancers in a performance they had rehearsed 1,000 times, each strike flowing into the next, each movement perfectly coordinated. And slowly, impossibly, the invincible guardian began to fall. Humbaba crashed to his knees, his massive form shaking the earth. His breath came in ragged gasps, flames sputtering and dying. His many eyes blinked in confusion and pain. For the first time in his ancient existence, he knew defeat was possible, knew that these two mortals had done what should have been impossible. Wait, wait, please. Spare me, and I will serve you. I will be your guardian instead of the gods. I will give you all the cedar you desire. I will make you lords of the forest. Just spare my life. Gilgamesh hesitated, his sword raised for the final blow. He looked at Enkidu, saw his own uncertainty reflected in his friend's eyes. Perhaps we should listen, Gilgamesh. We came for cedar, not for slaughter. We have proven our strength. We have won. Must we also kill? Enkidu speaks wisdom, great king. I have guarded this forest for 1,000 years, but I can guard your city instead. Think of the glory. Think of having the demon Humbaba as your servant. Your fame would spread to every corner of the world. But even as Humbaba spoke, Gilgamesh remembered something. He remembered the elders warning him of this very moment. He remembered the old stories of heroes who had shown mercy to monsters, only to be destroyed by that mercy later. He remembered that Humbaba was made by the gods, was loyal to the gods, and would never truly serve mortals. No, you are a creature of the gods. Your nature cannot change. The moment we turn our backs, you will call down divine vengeance upon us. The moment we show weakness, you will destroy us. I am sorry, Humbaba. You fought well. But this ends now. No, no, please. I beg you. I will swear by all the gods. I will bind myself with oaths that cannot be broken. Do not do this. Do not kill me. But Gilgamesh's mind was made. He raised his sword, and with a cry that echoed through the forest, he brought it down. The blade, blessed by his mother, guided by Shamash, struck true. Humbaba's head separated from his massive body and rolled across the forest floor, his many eyes closing one by one, his terrible voice finally silenced. For a moment, there was absolute quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the body of Humbaba collapsed, and the sound was like thunder, like the end of an age. The demon who had guarded the cedar forest for a millennium was dead, slain by two mortals who had dared to challenge the divine order. Enkidu stared at the corpse, his face pale. What have we done, Gilgamesh? What have we done? We have won. We have defeated the undefeatable. We have proven that mortals can challenge even the servants of the gods and triumph. This is the greatest victory in history. This is sacrilege. We have killed a guardian the gods themselves placed here. There will be consequences, Gilgamesh. The gods do not forgive such transgressions. Then let them be angry. What can they do to us? We have proven our strength. We are heroes now, Enkidu. Heroes whose names will echo through eternity. Enkidu wanted to argue, but exhaustion overcame him. They had won, yes, but at what cost? He looked at the devastation around them, at the ancient trees toppled and broken, at the sacred space violated and desecrated. They had come seeking glory, and they had found it. But glory, he was learning, often came with a price that was not revealed until it was too late to pay it back. They made camp among the fallen cedars, too tired to do anything but rest. As the sun set, filtering through the broken canopy, they tended their wounds and ate sparingly from their supplies. Neither spoke much. The magnitude of what they had done was beginning to sink in. That night, Enkidu dreamed again. In his dream, he saw the gods in council, their faces twisted with rage. He saw Enlil, the lord of the earth, calling for vengeance. He saw Anu agreeing, nodding his ancient head. He saw Shamash arguing on their behalf, but his voice was drowned out by the others. And he saw something being decided, some fate being sealed, some price being demanded for what they had done. He woke in the pre-dawn darkness, shivering despite the warmth of their fire. Another dream? Yes, the gods are angry, Gilgamesh. Very angry. They debate our punishment even now. Let them debate. When they see what we bring back to Uruk, when they see how the people celebrate, perhaps their anger will fade. Come, the sun rises. Let us select the finest cedars and begin our work. For the next several days, they worked to harvest the cedar they needed. They cut down the tallest, straightest trees, shaped them into logs that could be transported. They built a raft for the river journey back to Uruk. Every blow of the axe fell to Enkidu like another insult to the gods, Another weight added to the debt they were accumulating. But Gilgamesh worked with joy, with satisfaction, with the confidence of someone who believed he had earned the right to take what he wanted. Finally, their raft was complete, loaded with the finest cedar the world had ever seen. They pushed it into the river that would carry them home, jumping aboard as the current caught it. Behind them, the cedar forest stood silent and wounded, its guardian dead, its sanctity violated. But ahead lay Uruk and glory, and the celebration of heroes returned from impossible quests. The journey down the river took many days. As they traveled, they passed through lands they had crossed on foot during their journey north. But now word of their deed had spread. Somehow, people already knew that Gilgamesh and Enkidu had entered the cedar forest and emerged victorious. Villagers lined the riverbanks, cheering and throwing flowers. Children ran alongside, shouting their names. It seemed that all the world had heard of their triumph. You see, Enkidu, the people celebrate us. They do not fear divine retribution. They rejoice in what we have accomplished. The people do not understand what we have done. They see only heroes and glory. They do not see the gods' anger gathering like storm clouds above our heads. You worry too much, brother. Enjoy this moment. We have earned it. But Enkidu could not enjoy it. Every cheer felt like mockery. Every celebration felt like a funeral where the corpse had not yet realized it was dead. Something was coming. Something terrible. He could feel it in his bones, in his dreams, in the very air they breathed. Finally, after weeks of travel, the walls of Uruk appeared on the horizon. The entire city had turned out to welcome them. The gates stood open, and a procession of priests, nobles, and common folk streamed out to greet their returning king. At the head of the crowd stood Ninsun, tears streaming down her divine face, her prayers answered, her son returned alive. My son, you have returned. Thank the gods, thank Shamash, thank every power in heaven and earth. She embraced Gilgamesh, then Enkidu, holding them both as if she would never let go. Behind her, the people of Uruk pressed forward, eager to hear the tale, eager to see the cedar, eager to touch these men who had done the impossible. Mother, we have succeeded. We have killed Humbaba and brought back cedar enough to build gates that will last forever. Uruk will be more glorious than ever before. I am glad you are safe, my son. That is all that matters to me. The cedar, the glory, all of it means nothing compared to your life. Come, let us go to the temple. Let us give thanks to the gods for protecting you. They entered Uruk in triumph. The cedar logs dragged behind them by teams of oxen. The celebration lasted for days. Feasts were held, wine flowed freely, songs were composed and sung about the heroes who had dared the cedar forest and lived. Gilgamesh basked in the adulation, his doubts forgotten, his glory confirmed. He had done what no one else could do. He had proven himself worthy of his divine blood. On the third day of celebration, as Gilgamesh stood on the palace terrace in his finest robes, freshly bathed and groomed, something unexpected happened. The air shimmered, and suddenly she was there. Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, in all her terrible beauty. She was magnificent. Her skin glowed like polished bronze. Her hair fell in dark waves around her shoulders. Her eyes held the passion of 1,000 lovers and the cruelty of 1,000 wars. She wore robes that were both invitation and challenge, and her smile promised pleasures that mortals could barely imagine. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, son of Ninsun, slayer of Humbaba, you have impressed me. Few mortals have ever accomplished what you have done. You are strong, beautiful, and bold. I have decided that you shall be my lover. Marry me, and I will give you gifts beyond imagination. I will give you a chariot of gold and lapis lazuli. I will make kings and princes kneel before you. Your sheep will bear twins. Your goats will bear triplets. Your donkeys will run faster than horses. You will have everything you desire and more. All I ask in return is your love, your loyalty, and your body in my bed. She moved closer, her hand reaching out to touch his face. Any other man would have fallen to his knees, overcome with desire and awe. Any other man would have accepted instantly, knowing that to be loved by a goddess was the highest honor imaginable. But Gilgamesh stepped back. He had been thinking about this moment, or moments like it, ever since his battle with Humbaba. He had been thinking about the gods, about their nature, about their relationships with mortals, and he had realized something that filled him with a cold, clear anger. "My Lady Ishtar, your offer is generous, but I must decline." The goddess's smile froze. Around them, the air grew heavy, dangerous. No one refused Ishtar. No one. "You decline? Perhaps you do not understand what I am offering, mortal. I am offering you divine favor, eternal pleasure, power beyond your wildest dreams. And you dare refuse me? I understand perfectly, goddess. And I refuse. Shall I tell you why? Shall I list your former lovers, and what became of them?" "Gilgamesh, no. Do not do this." Enkidu appeared on the terrace, having heard the goddess's arrival. He saw the confrontation developing and rushed to intervene. But Gilgamesh ignored him. "Tammuz, the shepherd god. You loved him once, did you not? And yet every year he must descend into the underworld because of you. You condemned him to eternal suffering. Ishalanu, the gardener. He refused to touch you, and you turned him into a frog. The bird, the lion, the horse, all your lovers, all suffered for the privilege of your affection. You do not love, goddess. You consume. You take and take and take, and when you are finished, you discard the broken remains. I will not be added to that list. Find another toy for your amusement." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Ishtar's face transformed from seductive beauty to absolute fury. Her eyes blazed with divine wrath. Her voice, when she spoke, was the voice of hurricanes and earthquakes. You dare to insult me, to refuse me, to list my supposed failures as if you have any right to judge a goddess? I, who have existed since the beginning of time. I, who hold the power of love and war in my hands. You will regret this, Gilgamesh. You will beg for my forgiveness before the end. You will pray for the mercy of death, and find none. I will destroy you for this insult. I will destroy everything you love. Try, goddess. I have already killed one of your divine servants. I do not fear your wrath. You killed Humbaba because I allowed it. You succeeded because the gods were divided. But now you have united us in our anger. Now you have gone too far. Enjoy your triumph while you can, Gilgamesh. It will not last. Nothing you love will last. I will make certain of that. She vanished in a flash of light that left spots dancing in everyone's eyes. The celebration, which had been so joyous moments before, turned to stunned silence. Everyone had witnessed the confrontation. Everyone knew what it meant. Gilgamesh had not only killed Humbaba, he had now directly insulted one of the most powerful goddesses in the pantheon. Enkidu grabbed Gilgamesh by the shoulder, spinning him around. Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you have just done? You have made an enemy of Ishtar herself. No mortal survives that. What was I supposed to do? Accept her offer? Become another victim of her capricious cruelty? I would rather die free than live as her plaything. Then you may get your wish, brother, because goddesses do not forgive, and Ishtar least of all. She will come for us. She will destroy us, and there will be nothing we can do to stop her. Let her come. We defeated Humbaba. We can defeat whatever she sends against us. Humbaba was a guardian, not a warrior. He was designed to frighten, not to kill efficiently. Whatever Ishtar sends will be different. Worse, we should leave Uruk. We should flee to the ends of the earth, and hope she forgets about us. I will not run, Enkidu. I am the king of Uruk. I do not flee from threats. If Ishtar wants revenge, she knows where to find me. In the heavens, Ishtar stormed into the throne room of Anu, her father, the king of the gods. Her fury shook the celestial realm. Divine servants scattered before her like leaves in a hurricane. Father, I demand justice. I demand vengeance. That mortal insect Gilgamesh has insulted me beyond bearing. He refused my love. He listed my former lovers as if their fates were some sort of crime. He compared me to a common seductress. I will not tolerate this. Give me the bull of heaven. Give me your greatest weapon, and I will destroy Gilgamesh and Uruk and everything he has ever loved. Anu sat upon his throne of stars, ancient beyond measure, weary with the weight of eternity. He looked at his daughter with a mixture of love and exasperation. My daughter, are you certain this is wise? Gilgamesh spoke truly, did he not? Your former lovers have not fared well. Perhaps his refusal was prudent rather than insulting. Prudent? Prudent. He humiliated me in front of his entire city. He rejected me as if I were some common harlot. No mortal has ever dared to treat me this way. I demand satisfaction. Give me the bull of heaven, or I will open the gates of the underworld. I will raise the dead to devour the living. I will turn the world into a charnel house. This is exactly the kind of overreaction that makes mortals fear you, my daughter. But very well. If you must have your vengeance, take the bull of heaven. Unleash it upon Uruk. But know this, if you do, there will be consequences. The balance between gods and mortals is delicate. Push too hard, and something will break. And when it breaks, even I may not be able to repair it. I do not care about balance. I care about respect. I care about making an example of this arrogant mortal, so that no one ever dares refuse me again. Give me the bull, father. Now, take it then. May you find the satisfaction you seek. Though I suspect you will find only ashes and regret. Ishtar seized the reins of the bull of heaven, the divine beast that represented drought and famine, devastation and death. It was enormous, larger than any natural bull, with hide like bronze and horns like mountains. Its breath could parch the earth, its hooves could split stone, its bellow could drive men mad with terror. It had been used only rarely throughout history, always with catastrophic results. She led it to the edge of heaven and pointed it toward Uruk. Go, destroy that city. Destroy that king. Show him the price of refusing a goddess. Show him that mortals exist only at our sufferance, and when they forget their place, we remind them with blood and fire and tears. The bull of heaven descended from a celestial realm like a falling star. It crashed into the earth outside Uruk's walls, and the impact was felt for 100 miles in every direction. The ground shook. Buildings cracked. People screamed and ran for shelter. Gilgamesh stood on the walls, watching the dust cloud rise, watching the massive form emerge from the crater it had created. Even from a distance, he could see how enormous it was, how terrible. This was no mere guardian like Humbaba. This was a weapon. This was divine punishment given form. Enkidu joined him on the wall, his face pale. The bull of heaven. She has sent the bull of heaven. Gilgamesh, we cannot fight that. No mortal has ever survived facing it. We must evacuate the city. Get the people out while there is still time. No, the people stay behind the walls. They will be safe there. This bull is Ishtar's answer to me. It seeks me specifically, and I will face it. We will face it, brother. Together, as we have faced everything. This is different. This is not a test of strength. This is divine wrath. This is vengeance that cannot be reasoned with or defeated. Then we will be the first to defeat it. Open the gates, Enkidu. Let us meet our fate in the open, where we have room to fight. Let us show Ishtar that her bull is just another beast to be tamed. You are mad. Completely, utterly mad. Perhaps. But I am also the king of Uruk, and I will defend my city with my last breath. Are you with me, brother? Or will you let me face this alone? Enkidu looked at his friend, at this beautiful, proud, impossible man who had given him friendship and purpose. He thought of the wild, where life was simple and death came cleanly. He thought of how Gilgamesh had complicated everything, had made him care about things beyond survival, and he realized that he would not trade it for anything, even if it cost him his life. I am with you, always, to the very end. Then let us go meet this bull. And let us show the gods that mortals are not as helpless as they believe. They descended from the wall and walked toward the gates. Behind them, the entire city watched, praying, weeping, knowing that their king was walking toward death, but unable to look away. The gates opened, and Gilgamesh and Enkidu walked out alone to face the bull of heaven. Two mortals against divine judgment. Two friends against impossible odds. The bull saw them and charged, the earth trembling beneath its hooves. Its bellows shook the walls of Uruk. Its breath scorched the grass it passed. It was death incarnate, vengeance given form, the wrath of a goddess made manifest. And Gilgamesh and Enkidu, those two impossible heroes, those two brothers in all but blood, raised their weapons and charged to meet it. The final confrontation had begun. The gods watched from heaven. The people watched from the walls. History held its breath. And in that moment, no one knew who would survive, who would triumph, who would be remembered. All they knew was that something was ending, something was changing, and after this, nothing would ever be the same again. The bull of heaven's first breath created a pit in the earth that swallowed 100 men. The soldiers who had ventured too close to support their king simply vanished, consumed by the divine power of the beast's exhalation. The survivors fled back toward the walls, leaving only Gilgamesh and Enkidu to face the monster alone. Spread out. Don't let it focus on both of us at once. We need to tire it, wear it down. It is a divine creature, Gilgamesh. It does not tire. We need to find a weak point. Then we will create one. Gilgamesh ran at the bull from the side, his sword gleaming in the sunlight. He struck at its massive legs, trying to hamstring it, but his blade bounced off hide that was harder than bronze. The bull turned with terrifying speed, its horn sweeping toward him like a battering ram. Gilgamesh threw himself flat, feeling the wind of its passage above him, feeling how close death had come. Enkidu leaped onto the bull's back, his hands grasping for purchase on the bronze-like hide. For a moment, he held on, trying to reach some vital spot, trying to find somewhere his weapons could penetrate. But the bull bucked like a mountain in an earthquake, and Enkidu was thrown clear, landing hard enough to crack ribs, gasping for breath. The bull charged at Enkidu, sensing weakness. Its massive head lowered, horns aimed to gore and crush. Enkidu tried to roll aside, but his injured ribs slowed him. The horn caught him a glancing blow that sent him tumbling, bleeding, barely conscious. Enkidu. Gilgamesh threw himself between the bull and his fallen friend, shouting, waving his arms, making himself the target. The bull turned, its eyes glowing with divine fire, and charged. Gilgamesh stood his ground until the last possible moment, then dove aside, his hands grasping for the bull's horn as it passed. He caught it, his divine strength allowing him to hold on even as the bull tried to shake him loose. He climbed, hand over hand, up the massive head toward the neck. The bull thrashed and bellowed, trying to dislodge him. Below, Enkidu struggled to his feet, pain screaming through his broken ribs, but unwilling to let Gilgamesh fight alone. The neck, Enkidu. The neck is vulnerable. Strike there. With his last reserves of strength, Enkidu grabbed his axe and charged. As Gilgamesh held the bull's head down with all his might, straining every divine muscle in his body, Enkidu swung his axe with perfect precision. The blade bit deep into the base of the bull's skull, severing the divine spine. The bull of heaven let out one final bellow that echoed across the heavens. The gods themselves heard it and knew that the impossible had happened again. These two mortals had defeated another divine creature. The bull collapsed, its massive body shaking the earth one final time, and then it was still. Gilgamesh released his grip and fell to the ground, exhausted beyond measure. Enkidu dropped his axe and fell to his knees, clutching his broken ribs. For a moment, neither could speak, could barely breathe. They had won. Against all odds, against divine judgment itself, they had won. The gates of Uruk burst open, and the people poured out, cheering, crying, celebrating. Their king had saved them. Their heroes had triumphed. It was impossible, miraculous, a victory that would be sung about for generations. But not everyone celebrated. On the walls, the priests stared in horror. In the temple, Ninsun fell to her knees and wept, knowing that her son had crossed a line from which there was no return. And in the heavens, Ishtar screamed with rage. They killed it. They killed my bull. They killed the bull of heaven itself. Father, you must do something. You must punish them. They have gone too far. Anu sat silent on his throne, his ancient face unreadable. Around him, the other gods gathered, arguing, debating, some calling for immediate destruction of Uruk and everyone in it, others counseling caution. The debate raged for what seemed like hours, while below, Gilgamesh and Enkidu basked in their victory, unaware of the judgment being passed upon them. Finally, Enlil, Lord of the earth and wind, spoke. His voice was like grinding stones, like the slow movement of continents. Enough. This cannot continue. These mortals have killed Humbaba, guardian of the cedar forest. They have killed the bull of heaven a divine creature. They have insulted the gods and defied our will. They have proven that mortals, if strong enough, can challenge even us. This is unacceptable. This threatens the very order of creation. One of them must die. One of them must pay the price for this hubris. Which one? They are both guilty. The wild man, Enkidu. He was created by us, by divine hand. He has turned against his makers. He has enabled Gilgamesh's crimes. He has been the voice urging caution, yet he followed anyway. He is guilty, and he is the one most vulnerable to our judgment. Gilgamesh is protected by his divine mother's love and Shamash's favor. But Enkidu has no such protection. He will die. When? Soon. Very soon. He will fall ill, and no medicine will cure him. He will waste away, regretting his choices, understanding too late the price of defying the gods. And Gilgamesh will watch, helpless, learning that even his great strength cannot save those he loves. That will be punishment enough for both of them. The gods agreed, and the sentence was passed. In the heavenly realm, fate was sealed. Enkidu would die, and there was nothing that could prevent it. Below, in Uruk, the celebration continued for days. Gilgamesh ordered a great feast. He had the finest cedar gates, made from the wood they had brought from the forest. He commissioned songs and poems about their victory. He gave gifts to the people, declared days of rest and celebration. He was at the height of his power, the peak of his glory. Enkidu participated in the celebrations, but something was wrong. His broken ribs healed slowly, too slowly. He found himself exhausted after the smallest exertion. Food tasted like ashes in his mouth. At night, he dreamed terrible dreams of darkness and descent, of a place beneath the earth where the dead dwelt in shadow and dust. On the 7th day after the battle, Enkidu collapsed. One moment he was standing beside Gilgamesh, laughing at some joke, and the next he was on the ground, fever burning through him, unable to rise. Enkidu, brother, what is wrong? I do not know. I feel as if I am being pulled down into the earth, as if something is calling me to a place I do not want to go. Gilgamesh called for physicians, for healers, for priests. They examined Enkidu, gave him medicines, performed rituals, but nothing helped. The fever grew worse. Enkidu's strength, that magnificent strength that had made him Gilgamesh's equal, began to fade like morning mist in the sun. Days passed, and Enkidu grew weaker. His skin turned pale, his eyes hollow. He lay in the palace, in the finest bed, surrounded by the best care Uruk could provide, and none of it mattered. He was dying, and everyone knew it except Gilgamesh, who refused to accept what was happening. You will recover, brother. You are too strong to die from a simple fever. Remember, you fought Humbaba. You helped kill the bull of heaven. You cannot die from illness. It is impossible. Gilgamesh, my friend, my brother, listen to me. This is not a simple fever. This is divine judgment. The gods are angry. They are taking their revenge, not on you who they cannot easily touch, but on me who they created. I am dying, and nothing can stop it. No, I will not accept that. I will make offerings to every god. I will build temples, perform rituals, give them whatever they want. They will heal you. They must. They will not. And perhaps they are right. We went too far, Gilgamesh. We killed creatures we should have left alone. We defied laws we should have respected. We thought ourselves above consequences. And now the consequences have come. We were heroes. We did great deeds. That is what we were meant to do. Were we? Or were we just two proud men playing at being gods? I think back to my time in the wilderness, before Shem had found me, before I learned to speak, before I knew your name. I was happy then, Gilgamesh. I was free. I lived simply. Died would have died simply, and that would have been enough. But I was brought into your world, taught to want more, to reach higher, to seek glory. And now I pay the price for that ambition. Enkidu, please, do not say such things. You do not mean them. You are feverish, confused. When you recover, I will not recover. Can you not see that? I am dying, Gilgamesh. And before I die, I need to say things. I need to speak truth, even if it angers you. Then speak. Say whatever you need to say. But do not give up. Do not leave me." Enkidu's eyes filled with tears, the first tears he had shed since leaving the wilderness. He reached out and grasped Gilgamesh's hand, holding it with what little strength remained. "I curse Shamhat, the priestess who civilized me. I curse the temple doors that first let me into the world of humans. I curse the day I learned language and law. I curse every step that led me from the freedom of the wild to this bed of death. I wish I had never met you, Gilgamesh. I wish I had lived and died as an animal, unknowing, uncaring, unafraid." Gilgamesh felt as if he had been struck. He pulled his hand away, staggering back from the bed. "You wish you had never met me? After everything we have shared? After all we have accomplished together?" But even as the words left Enkidu's mouth, he knew they were false. In his fevered mind, he heard a voice, gentle and warm, like sunlight. It was Shamash, the sun god, the one deity who had shown them favor. "Enkidu, why do you curse these things? Why do you regret the path you have walked? Yes, you are dying. Yes, the gods are cruel. But think of what you have experienced. You, who knew only the simple life of beasts, have learned love and friendship. You have known the taste of bread and beer. You have seen the greatest city in the world. You have fought battles that will be remembered forever. You have been called brother by a king. You have lived more fully in your short time as a human than many who live 100 years. Do not curse these gifts. Do not die in bitterness." Enkidu's expression softened. The anger drained from his face, replaced by sadness and understanding. "You are right, great Shamash. You are right, and I was wrong. Gilgamesh, forgive me. I do not curse Shamhat. I bless her. She gave me language, thought, the ability to love. I do not curse the doors of civilization. I bless them. They led me to you. I do not wish I had never met you. Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You taught me what it means to be human, to be more than an animal. Even if the price is death, it was worth it. You are worth it." Gilgamesh fell to his knees beside the bed, grasping Enkidu's hand again, tears streaming down his face. "Do not leave me, brother. I cannot do this alone. I cannot rule Uruk alone. I cannot face the world alone. Please, Enkidu, fight this. Stay with me. I would if I could, my king, my friend, my brother. But my strength is gone. I can feel it leaving, like water draining from a broken vessel. Soon there will be nothing left. Promise me something, Gilgamesh. Promise me you will not let anger consume you. Promise me you will be a good king, a just king, the kind of king Uruk deserves. Promise me my death will not be in vain. I promise. I swear it. Just stay. Please stay." But Enkidu could not stay. That night, as Gilgamesh held his hand, as the palace staff kept vigil, as all of Uruk prayed for a miracle that would not come, Enkidu's fever broke in the worst possible way. His eyes opened wide, staring at something only he could see. The darkness. "I see it now. The house of dust, the place where the dead dwell. There is no light there, Gilgamesh. No joy, no hope. Only shadow and silence, and the endless company of the dead. That is where I go. That is where all mortals go, whether king or beggar, hero or coward. We all end in the same darkness. No, no, there must be more. There must be something beyond death. There must be meaning. If there is, I do not see it. I see only darkness. I am afraid, Gilgamesh. I am so afraid. I am here. I will not leave you. You do not go into that darkness alone. I will hold your hand until the very end. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for everything. Thank you for showing me what it means to be human, even if only for a little while. Remember me, Gilgamesh. Remember me not as the wild man you found in the steppe, but as your brother, your companion, your equal. Remember our adventures, our battles, our victories. Remember that for a brief, shining moment, we were the greatest heroes the world had ever known. I will remember. Always. Forever. I swear it on my divine blood, on my mother's love, on everything I hold sacred. You will never be forgotten, Enkidu. Never. That is all I ask. That is all anyone can ask. To be remembered, to have mattered, to have lived. And then, with a final breath that was almost like a sigh of relief, Enkidu died. His hand went limp in Gilgamesh's grasp. His eyes stared unseeing at the ceiling. The strength that had made him a hero, the consciousness that had made him human, the spirit that had made him a friend, all of it fled, leaving only an empty shell. Gilgamesh stared at the body that had once been his brother, his mind unable to accept what his eyes were seeing. This could not be happening. This should not be happening. Enkidu was strong, invincible, immortal in Gilgamesh's mind. He could not simply stop, could not simply end, could not simply cease to be. Enkidu, Enkidu, wake up. This is not funny. Wake up. We have more adventures ahead of us, more battles to fight, more glory to win. Wake up. But Enkidu did not wake. Gilgamesh shook him, shouted at him, begged him. Nothing changed. The truth, terrible and absolute, could no longer be denied. Enkidu was dead. His brother was gone. And Gilgamesh was alone. The king of Uruk, who had never wept, who had never shown weakness, who had always stood strong and proud and confident, broke. He collapsed onto Enkidu's chest, sobbing like a child, his whole body shaking with grief. The palace staff, who had never seen their king show such emotion, did not know what to do. So they simply stood there, witnessing a grief so profound it seemed to fill the entire world. For 7 days and 7 nights, Gilgamesh refused to leave Enkidu's side. He would not let them prepare the body for burial. He would not let them take it away. He simply sat there, holding his dead friend's hand, as if by sheer force of will he could call him back from the darkness. My king, we must prepare the body. It has been 7 days. The heat, the decay, we must act. No, he is not dead. He is only sleeping. He will wake soon. I know he will. My lord, he is gone. You must let him go. You must let us give him a proper burial, a hero's funeral. The people need to mourn. You need to mourn. But Gilgamesh would not listen until a worm crawled from Enkidu's nose. That single, undeniable sign of decay broke through his denial like a hammer through glass. He stared at it. This tiny proof that his friend's body was just a body now, no different from any dead thing, subject to the same laws of decay and dissolution. He released Enkidu's hand and stood, his face like stone, his eyes empty of everything except pain. Prepare him. Give him a funeral worthy of the greatest hero Uruk has ever known. Spare no expense. Use all the gold in my treasury if necessary, but make it magnificent. Make it eternal. Make it something that will be remembered when the very stones of Uruk have crumbled to dust. The funeral was indeed magnificent. Gilgamesh ordered a statue of Enkidu made from solid gold, larger than life, showing him as he had been in his prime. He commissioned poems and songs that would preserve every detail of his friend's life and deeds. He ordered every craftsman in Uruk to create offerings for the tomb, weapons and jewelry and precious things that Enkidu could carry with him into the afterlife. If there was an afterlife, if there was anything at all beyond the darkness. The entire city attended the funeral procession. They carried Enkidu through the streets he had walked, past the gates he had defended, to a tomb that had been carved into the living rock outside the city walls. Gilgamesh himself carried the body for the final distance, refusing all help, as if this one last service was the only thing he could still do for his friend. They laid Enkidu to rest surrounded by treasures, his weapons at his side, food and drink for his journey into death. The priests performed the rituals, spoke the words that were supposed to ease the passage to the underworld. And Gilgamesh stood there dry-eyed now, his tears all spent, watching them seal his brother away in darkness forever. When it was done, when everyone else had left, when the sun was setting and the shadows growing long, Gilgamesh stood alone at the tomb entrance. He placed his hand on the cold stone that separated him from his friend and spoke words that no one else would ever hear. I do not know if you can hear me, brother. I do not know if there is anything after death, any consciousness, any awareness. The priests say there is a place for the dead, a dark house beneath the earth where you exist as a shade, as a shadow of what you were. I hope they are wrong. I hope you have found peace, found light, found something better than the darkness you feared. But if there is an afterlife, if you are somewhere watching, know this. I will not forget you. I will not let the world forget you. Your name will be spoken as long as humans have voices. Your deeds will be remembered as long as memory exists. You will be immortal, not in body, but in story and song, in the hearts of those who hear about the wild man who became a hero. And I will find a way to join you. Somehow, I will find a way to cheat death itself. Because I cannot bear this. I cannot bear a world where you do not exist. I cannot bear knowing that I, too, will one day end, will one day become nothing but dust and darkness and forgotten dreams. There must be a way to live forever. There must be. And I will find it. I swear it, Enkidu. By all the gods, by all the powers in heaven and earth, I swear it. I will find the secret of immortality. I will conquer death itself. And when I do, when I have achieved what no mortal has ever achieved, I will be able to face you again, not as a shade or a memory, but as myself, eternal and undying. Wait for me, brother. Wherever you are, whatever you have become, wait for me. I will find you again. This is not the end. This cannot be the end. I refuse to accept it. The sun set completely, leaving Gilgamesh alone in the darkness. He stood there for hours, unable to leave, unable to let go. Finally, as the stars emerged in their countless millions, he turned and walked back toward Uruk. But he was not the same man who had walked out. Something had broken inside him, something fundamental, and something else had been born in that brokenness. An obsession, a purpose, a quest that would define the rest of his life. He would find immortality. He would conquer death. He would prove that mortals were not meant to simply live and die and disappear into darkness. He would find a way to make meaning permanent, to make love eternal, to make loss impossible. He did not yet know that this quest would take him to the ends of the earth. He did not yet know the suffering he would endure, the truths he would learn, the wisdom he would gain through failure. He knew only that he could not stay in Uruk, could not continue ruling as if nothing had changed, could not pretend that life had any meaning in the shadow of inevitable death. The tyrant who had become a hero was about to become something else entirely. A seeker, a wanderer, a man searching for answers that perhaps were never meant to be found. The next chapter of his story was about to begin, and it would be unlike anything that had come before. But that would wait for dawn. Tonight Gilgamesh mourned, and the city of Uruk mourned with him for the loss of a hero, for the change that had come over their king, for the end of an age that had seemed like it would last forever, but it passed in the blink of an eye, as all things must pass, as all things will always pass, whether mortal or divine, whether remembered or forgotten, whether loved or unloved. Death had come to Uruk, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days after Enkidu's burial were the darkest Uruk had ever known. Gilgamesh abandoned his throne, abandoned his duties, abandoned everything. He wandered the palace like a ghost, refusing food, refusing sleep, refusing to speak to anyone. The advisors tried to reach him. The priests offered comfort. His mother-named son begged him to return to the world of the living. But he heard none of them. All he could think about was Enkidu's final words. The darkness, the house of dust where the dead dwelt without light, without hope, without any of the things that made life worth living. And the terrifying realization that he, too, would one day go to that place, that no matter how strong he was, how divine his blood, how great his deeds, death would come for him as it came for everyone. On the 7th day after the funeral, Gilgamesh left his chambers, but he did not dress in his royal robes. Instead, he wore the simple skins of a hunter. His hair, usually carefully groomed, hung wild and unkempt. His face, usually clean-shaven, was now covered with stubble. He looked less like a king and more like the wild man Enkidu had once been. His advisors found him preparing supplies for a journey. "My lord, where are you going? The city needs you. You cannot simply leave. The city has survived without me before. It will survive again. I am leaving Uruk. I do not know when I will return. Perhaps never. But my lord, where will you go? What are you seeking?" Gilgamesh turned to face them, and they were shocked by the wildness in his eyes, the desperation that had replaced his usual confidence. "I seek Utnapishtim, the immortal, the one who survived the great flood, the only mortal ever to be granted eternal life by the gods. If anyone knows the secret of immortality, it is he, and I will find him, no matter how far I must travel, no matter what I must endure. My lord, Utnapishtim is a legend, a myth. No one knows if he even exists. And if he does exist, he lives at the edge of the world, beyond the waters of death, in a place no mortal has ever reached. Then I will be the first. I will cross any distance, overcome any obstacle. I will not accept death. I refuse to. Enkidu should not have died. I should not die. There must be a way to live forever, and I will find it. My lord, this is grief speaking. This is not rational thought. Please, take time to mourn properly. Take time to heal. Do not make decisions in this state. I have no time. Do you not understand? Every moment I waste is a moment closer to my own death. Every day that passes is a day I could die, just as Enkidu died. I must go now, immediately, before it is too late. Nin's son entered the chamber, her divine face etched with concern. My son, I understand your pain. I, too, loved Enkidu. But this quest is madness. Utnapishtim was granted immortality by the gods as a unique reward after the flood. His gift cannot be transferred. His secret cannot be learned. You seek something that does not exist. Then I will make it exist. I am two-thirds divine, mother. I am not meant to simply die like common mortals. There must be a way for me to claim my full divine heritage, to become truly immortal. And if the gods will not give it to me freely, I will take it. This is pride, Gilgamesh. The same pride that led you to kill Humbaba, to insult Ishtar, to bring about Enkidu's death. Will you never learn? Enkidu's death taught me the only lesson that matters, that life without immortality is meaningless, that all our accomplishments, all our loves, all our struggles, are rendered pointless by death. I will not accept that. I cannot. He gathered his supplies and walked toward the palace gates. Nin's son followed, still trying to reason with him. Where will you even begin? The world is vast, and Utnapishtim's location is known only to the gods. I will travel to the mountains, where the sun rises. That is where legends say he dwells, at the edge of the world. I will cross the twin peaks of Mashu, where the scorpion people guard the gate to the sun's path. I will find a way, mother. I always do. The scorpion people allow no one to pass. They have guarded that gate since the beginning of time. They allowed no one to pass. But they have never faced me. Goodbye, mother. Pray for my success, if you wish. Mourn my foolishness, if you must. But do not try to stop me. My mind is made. He walked through the gates of Uruk without looking back. Behind him, his mother wept, knowing that her son was embarking on a journey from which she might never return, seeking something that could never be found. But she was a goddess, and goddesses understand that some lessons can only be learned through suffering. Some wisdom can only be gained through failure. So she did not stop him. She only watched him go and prayed to Shamash to protect him on his impossible quest. Gilgamesh traveled east, toward the rising sun, toward the edge of the known world. He crossed deserts that had no name, climbed mountains that had never known human footsteps, forded rivers that ran with water so cold it burned like fire. He ate when he found food, slept when exhaustion overcame him, and the rest of the time he simply walked, driven by obsession, by grief, by the desperate need to make sense of Enkidu's death. As he traveled, he grew thinner, harder, more feral. His royal bearing faded, replaced by the stance of a predator. His soft hands became calloused and scarred. His smooth skin was burned by sun and wind. He began to look less like a king and more like a wild beast, which was fitting, because he was hunting something more elusive than any animal. He was hunting eternity itself. After many weeks, the landscape began to change. The mountains grew taller, more jagged, more hostile to life. The air grew thin and cold. And finally, one morning at dawn, he saw them, the twin peaks of Mashu, rising into the sky like the pillars that held up heaven itself. Between them was a gate, massive and ancient, carved with symbols that predated human language. And guarding the gate were the scorpion people. They were exactly as the legends described, and worse. Their lower bodies were those of enormous scorpions, armored and powerful, tails curved and dripping with venom. Their upper bodies were humanoid, but twisted, wrong, with too many arms and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. They radiated menace, ancient power, the absolute authority of beings that had stood guard here since the gods first shaped the world. Gilgamesh approached them, his hand not on his weapon, knowing that he could not fight these creatures, that he would need to pass through negotiation or not at all. The male scorpion person spoke, his voice like grinding sand. "Stop, mortal. You stand before the gate of the sun, the path that Shamash travels each day from east to west beneath the earth. No living human may pass this way. Turn back, or we will be forced to kill you. I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, son of Ninsun the goddess, 2/3 divine. I seek Utnapishtim the immortal. I must pass through this gate." The female scorpion person studied him, her many eyes blinking in sequence. "We know who you are, Gilgamesh. Your fame has reached even this remote place. We know of your deeds, your victories, your sorrows. But that does not change our duty. No mortal, no matter how famous, no matter how divine their blood, may pass through the gate of the sun. Then kill me, because I will not turn back. I have traveled too far, suffered too much, lost too much to give up now. If you will not let me pass, then strike me down. But know that even in death, I will find a way. I will crawl through the underworld itself if necessary. I will not be stopped." The two guardians looked at each other, communicating in ways that transcended words. Finally, the male spoke again. "Why do you seek Utnapishtim? What question drives you to the edge of the world, to the brink of death itself?" "I seek the secret of immortality. My friend, my brother, died despite all my strength, all my power. I could not save him, and I realize that I, too, will die. That everything I am, everything I have done, will one day end. I cannot accept that. I will not. There must be a way to live forever. So you seek to escape death? To cheat the fate that awaits all mortals?" "Yes, exactly. Is that not worth any price?" The female scorpion person's voice was gentler now, almost pitying. "Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, what you seek does not exist. Immortality is not a secret to be learned or a treasure to be claimed. It is a gift that only the gods can grant, and they grant it rarely, to almost no one. Utnapishtim received it under unique circumstances that will never be repeated. You waste your time and your life seeking what cannot be found. Then my time and life are mine to waste. Will you let me pass, or will you kill me? Those are the only choices I will accept." The guardians conferred again. Finally, the male sighed, a sound like wind through ancient tunnels. "Very well. We will let you pass. Not because we believe you will succeed, but because your grief has made you mad, and the mad are under the protection of the gods. But know this, the path through the mountains is 12 leagues of absolute darkness. No light penetrates it. It is the path of the sun at night, returning from west to east beneath the world. You will walk through that darkness for 12 leagues, and you must emerge on the other side before the sun enters again, or you will be burned to ashes. Many have tried. All have failed. The darkness drives men insane, makes them lose their way, causes them to wander in circles until the sun comes and consumes them. I have walked in darkness ever since Enkidu died. This will be no different. Open the gate." The scorpion people moved aside, and the great gate swung open on hinges that groaned with the weight of ages. Beyond lay absolute blackness, a darkness so complete it seemed to have physical substance. "Gilgamesh, one final warning. The darkness will show you things. Visions, memories, fears. It will try to make you turn back. It will offer you comfort, oblivion, relief from your suffering. Do not accept. Do not stop. Do not turn aside. Walk straight ahead, always ahead, and do not stop for any reason. That is the only way to survive. I understand. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for allowing me to pass. Do not thank us. If you die in that darkness, your death is on your own head. We offered you the chance to turn back. Remember that." Gilgamesh stepped through the gate, and it closed behind him with a boom like thunder. The darkness swallowed him whole. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. This was not merely the absence of light. This was darkness as an active force, pressing against him, weighing on him, trying to crush him. He could not see his hand in front of his face. He could not tell if his eyes were open or closed. All sense of direction vanished instantly. But he remembered the warning. Walk straight ahead. Do not stop. Do not turn aside. He put one foot in front of the other and began to walk. At first, there was only silence and darkness. But gradually, as he walked, he began to hear things. Voices. Familiar voices. Gilgamesh, why do you walk this path? Why do you flee from me? It was Enkidu's voice. Gilgamesh stopped, his heart racing. No, this is not real. Enkidu is dead. This is a trick of the darkness. I am not dead, my friend. I am here, in this darkness. We are all here, all the dead. You could join us. You could rest. You could stop fighting. Is that not what you truly want? To stop fighting? Gilgamesh forced himself to start walking again, even as tears streamed down his face in the darkness, where no one could see them. You are not Enkidu. Enkidu would not ask me to give up. He would want me to live, to fight, to continue. Would I? Perhaps I would rather have you here with me than alive and suffering in a world that means nothing. Come, Gilgamesh. Join me in the darkness. It is not so bad once you accept it. No, he walked faster, trying to outpace the voice. But it followed, along with others. His father Lugalbanda, who had died when Gilgamesh was young. His childhood friends, lost to war and time. All the people he had failed to save, failed to protect, failed to love properly. They called to him from the darkness, urging him to stop, to rest, to accept the inevitable. He walked on. Minutes became hours. Hours became an eternity. His legs ached. His lungs burned. His mind started to play tricks on him. He saw lights that were not there, heard sounds that had no source. The darkness pressed closer, closer, trying to squeeze the life from him. And then the visions came. Not voices now, but images, somehow visible in the absolute darkness. He saw Uruk burning. He saw his people enslaved. He saw his mother weeping over his grave. He saw everything he loved being destroyed, because he had abandoned his duty as king to pursue a selfish quest for immortality. Is this what you want? The darkness whispered. Is your fear of death worth the suffering of everyone you claim to love? He stumbled, fell to his knees, the weight of guilt almost crushing him. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps he should turn back. Perhaps this quest was selfish, was cowardice dressed up as courage. No, no, I cannot turn back. I have come too far. If I return now, Enkidu's death means nothing. My suffering means nothing. I must continue. I must. He forced himself to his feet and walked on. The darkness grew even more oppressive, if that was possible. He felt as if he were walking through mud, through stone, through the very substance of the earth itself. Every step was agony. Every breath was a battle. But he did not stop. And then, after what felt like years, but was probably only hours, he saw it. A distant point of light. So faint at first that he thought it was another illusion, another trick of the darkness. But as he walked, it grew brighter, stronger, more real. It was the exit, the other side of the mountain, the end of the darkness. He ran then, his exhausted body finding reserves of strength he did not know he possessed. The light grew brighter, brighter, until it was almost blinding after the absolute darkness. He burst through the opening and fell to his knees on the far side, gasping, weeping, laughing like a madman. He had made it. He had crossed the 12 leagues of darkness. He had survived what no other mortal had survived. The sun was just beginning to rise, and if he had been even a few minutes slower, he would have been caught in the tunnel when Shamash entered to begin his journey under the world. But he had made it. For several minutes, he simply lay there, letting the sunlight wash over him, feeling its warmth, its life-giving power. Then, slowly, he stood and looked around. He was in a garden unlike any he had ever seen. The trees bore fruits made of precious stones. Rubies hung like cherries. Emeralds grew like apples. The grass was not grass, but fine strands of gold. The flowers were diamonds and sapphires. This was no mortal garden. This was the garden of the gods, the place where they came to walk and rest, a paradise at the edge of the world. And sitting beneath a tree of silver leaves and golden fruit was a woman. She was old but ageless, worn by time but somehow beyond it. She wore simple robes and had the air of someone who had seen everything, done everything, and was no longer impressed by much of anything. She looked at Gilgamesh with eyes that were knowing and sad. "You must be Gilgamesh." Only someone as foolish and brave as you would cross the tunnel of darkness. Sit, rest. You look like you need it. Who are you? I am Siduri, the tavern keeper. I keep an inn for the gods when they travel this way. Though I must say, they visit rarely these days. The world is not as young as it once was, and even the gods grow tired of their eternal duties. You keep a tavern in the garden of the gods, at the edge of the world? That seems like an odd profession. I keep a tavern anywhere someone needs wine and wisdom. And you, Gilgamesh, look like you need both. Come sit, drink with me. Tell me your story. I have all the time in the world, and you look like you need someone to talk to. Gilgamesh wanted to refuse, wanted to continue his quest immediately. But his body was exhausted, his mind was reeling, and something about this woman, this simple tavern keeper in her impossible garden, made him trust her. He sat beneath the jeweled tree and accepted the cup of wine she offered. And for the first time since Enkidu's death, Gilgamesh talked. He told her everything. About his friend, about the adventures they had shared, about the grief that consumed him, about his desperate need to find immortality, to make sense of loss, to prove that death was not the final answer. Siduri listened without interrupting, her ancient eyes filled with compassion. When he finally fell silent, she was quiet for a long moment before speaking. Gilgamesh, you seek something that will only bring you more suffering. You think immortality will solve your problems, will heal your grief, will give meaning to your life. But you are wrong. How can you know? How can anyone know unless they have experienced it? Because I am old, Gilgamesh. Older than you can imagine. I have seen heroes like you come and go. I have seen them chase the same dream you chase. And I have seen what happens when they achieve it. Immortality does not heal grief. It only extends it forever. It does not give meaning to life. It only makes meaninglessness permanent. You think eternal life is a blessing. It is a curse, a prison, an endless succession of days that all blur together until you cannot remember why you wanted to live forever in the first place. But Enkidu is dead. That is a terrible truth, but it is truth. And no amount of seeking, no amount of suffering will change it. What you need to do is not chase immortality, but learn to live with mortality. Learn to find meaning not in eternal life, but in the time you have. Learn to love not because it will last forever, but because it will end. How? How can I do that when every moment I know it will end? Because that is what it means to be human, Gilgamesh. That is the gift of mortality that you have been too blind to see. The gods live forever, and their days mean nothing. They have infinite time, so no single moment matters. But you, with your limited days, you have the chance to make each moment precious. Each sunset, each meal, each conversation, each act of love, all of it matters, because it will end. That is not tragedy. That is beauty. Gilgamesh wanted to argue, but found he could not. Some part of him, deep inside, recognized the truth in her words, but he was not ready to accept it. Not yet. He had come too far to give up now. I understand what you are saying, but I still must find Utnapishtim. I still must ask him about immortality. I have to know. I have to try. Siduri sighed and shook her head. Then you will learn the hard way, as all heroes do. Very well. I will tell you how to find Utnapishtim, but know that the path is difficult and dangerous. You must cross the waters of death, and to do that, you need the help of Urshanabi, the ferryman. He lives by the shore, not far from here. Tell him I sent you. He may agree to take you across, though I doubt he will be happy about it. Where are these waters of death? And why are they called that? They are the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the gods, the place where Utnapishtim dwells. The waters themselves are poison. One drop in your skin will kill you instantly. You cannot swim them, cannot wade them, cannot even touch them. Only Urshanabi's boat can cross them safely, and even then, only if you follow his instructions exactly. One mistake, and you will die. I have faced death many times already. I am not afraid. Yes, you are. That is why you are here. But fear is not always bad, Gilgamesh. Sometimes fear is wisdom. Sometimes refusing to be afraid is the greatest foolishness. Go, find Urshanabi. Cross the waters of death if you must. Meet Utnapishtim and hear what he has to say. but I suspect you will not find what you're looking for. And when you return this way, if you return, I hope you will have learned something worth all this suffering. Thank you, Siduri. Thank you for your wisdom and your wine. I will remember your words. See that you do. And Gilgamesh, when you finally understand what I have tried to tell you, when you finally see the truth, do not despair. There is still time for you to live well, to rule well, to honor Enkidu's memory not through immortality, but through the legacy you leave behind. That is the only immortality mortals were ever meant to have. Gilgamesh left the Garden of the Gods and made his way toward the shore of the waters of death. The landscape grew increasingly strange and barren. No plants grew here. No animals lived here. It was a place between places, a border between the world of the living and something else. And there, on a gray beach beside waters that shimmered with unnatural colors, he found Urshanabi, the ferryman, an old man, weathered and grim, working on a boat made of strange wood that seemed to shift colors in the uncertain light. Are you Urshanabi, the ferryman who can cross the waters of death? The old man looked up, squinting at Gilgamesh with eyes that had seen too much. I am. And you must be another fool seeking Utnapishtim. It is always the same. Someone loses someone they love, and they decide death is unacceptable, so they come seeking the secret to eternal life. And I, like an idiot, help them cross, though I do not know why. Nothing good ever comes of it. Siduri sent me. She said you might help me. Siduri, was it? That old busybody. Well, if she sent you, I suppose you have suffered enough to earn passage. But hear me well. This will not be an easy crossing. The waters of death are treacherous. You cannot touch them with any part of your body. You cannot let them splash into the boat. And most importantly, you must help me punt the boat across, but you can only use each punting pole once. If you use the same pole twice, it will become contaminated and kill us both. How many poles do we have? 120. We will need all of them. Are you prepared for this? There is still time to turn back, to return to your city, to your people, to your life. I am prepared. Let us begin. And so began the longest, strangest journey of Gilgamesh's quest. They pushed out into the waters of death, and Gilgamesh understood immediately why they were called that. The water was not water, not really. It was something else, something that hurt to look at, that made his skin crawl even without touching it. One pole at a time, they pushed forward, Gilgamesh and Urshanabi working in rhythm. Each pole was used once and then discarded, floating away behind them, dissolving into the poisonous waters. They worked in silence, concentrating, knowing that one mistake would mean death. The journey seemed to take forever. There was no sun here, no stars, just a gray twilight that never changed. Time lost all meaning. There was only the push, the release, the next pole, over and over again. Finally, when they were down to their last pole, land appeared ahead, an island, green and pleasant, utterly out of place in this realm of death. They pushed up onto the shore, both exhausted, and Gilgamesh saw him, an old man, standing at the water's edge, watching them approach. He looked completely ordinary, like any elderly human, with white hair and a lined face and the stooped posture of age. There was nothing divine about him, nothing that suggested immortality. He could have been any old man from any village in the world. But his eyes were ancient beyond measure, and they held the weight of lifetimes, of experiences no mortal should have survived. This was Utnapishtim, the immortal, the only human ever granted eternal life by the gods, the object of Gilgamesh's impossible quest. And he was looking at the king of Uruk with an expression of profound disappointment, as if Gilgamesh were just another in a long line of fools who would never learn the lessons that truly mattered. So, you made it. Another hero seeking immortality. Another fool who thinks death can be conquered. Come then. Let us talk. Though I warn you now, you will not like what I have to say. You will not find what you seek here. But you have come all this way, suffered so much to reach me. The least I can do is tell you the truth, whether you are ready to hear it or not. Utnapishtim led Gilgamesh to a simple dwelling on the island, a house no different from thousands of others that dotted the lands around Uruk. His wife, as ancient and ordinary-looking as he, brought them water and simple food. They sat together, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Gilgamesh broke the silence. You are Utnapishtim, the one who was granted immortality, the one who survived the great flood? I am, though I am not certain whether immortality was a gift or a punishment. The gods never did explain their reasoning clearly. But yes, I am the one you have been seeking across the world. And you are Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, 2/3 divine, slayer of Humbaba, killer of the bull of heaven. Your fame has reached even here, to this place beyond the edge of the world. Then you know why I have come. I seek the secret of eternal life. My friend Enkidu died, and I realize that I, too, will die someday. I cannot accept this. I will not. You were granted immortality. Tell me how. Tell me what I must do to achieve the same. Utnapishtim's wife looked at her husband with an expression that might have been pity. Utnapishtim himself sighed deeply, as if preparing to deliver news he had delivered many times before to many other seekers who never listened. Before I answer, let me ask you something, Gilgamesh. Look at me. Truly look at me. Do I look any different from any other old man? Do I radiate divine power? Do I seem blessed? You look ordinary, but perhaps that is part of the test. Perhaps immortality does not announce itself. Or perhaps immortality is not what you imagine it to be. You think it means eternal youth, eternal strength, eternal relevance. But look at me. I am old. I have been old for centuries. My bones ache. My eyes fail. My hands tremble. I do not die, but I do not truly live either. I simply exist, day after day, watching the world change around me, watching everyone I have ever known turn to dust, unable to join them in the peace of death. But you have time, infinite time. You can do anything, learn anything, experience everything. I have already done everything worth doing. I have learned everything worth learning. After the first few centuries, Gilgamesh, life becomes repetition. The seasons cycle. The same stories repeat with different faces. The same wars are fought for the same reasons. Nothing is new. Nothing surprises. Nothing matters because everything lasts forever. Do you understand what I am telling you? You think immortality will solve your fear of death. But immortality is its own kind of death. A death of meaning, of purpose, of the urgency that makes life precious. How can you say that? How can you claim that living forever is worse than dying? Because I have lived it. Because I know what you do not. But I see that words will not convince you. They never do. Very well. Let me tell you how I gained immortality, and perhaps you will understand why it cannot be repeated, why it should not be repeated. Please, tell me everything. Utnapishtim settled back, his ancient eyes growing distant as he remembered events from so long ago that the world itself had been different. In the time before time as you know it, when the world was younger and the gods were more active in mortal affairs, humanity had grown numerous and loud. We filled the earth with our cities, our farms, our noise and activity. And the gods, who had created us as servants, grew annoyed with us. We disturbed their rest. We filled the world with our quarrels and our wars. And so, in the council of the gods, Enlil proposed a solution, a flood, a great deluge that would wipe humanity from the face of the earth and allow the gods to start over with a quieter, more obedient creation. Most of the gods agreed. They were tired of humanity's noise, tired of our constant demands for attention, tired of our worship that was more negotiation than reverence. But one god objected. Ea, the god of wisdom and water, argued that destroying all of humanity was excessive, that we had value despite our flaws. The other gods would not listen to him, so he found a loophole. He could not directly defy the decree of the divine council, but he could warn one human, give one family a chance to survive, and that human was me. I was, at the time, just an ordinary man, a boat builder in the city of Shurapak. I had a wife, children, a simple life. Nothing special, nothing that marked me as different from thousands of others. But one day, as I worked on repairing a ship, I heard a voice coming from the wall of my workshop. It was Ea, speaking to the wall, not to me directly, thus technically not breaking the divine decree. And he told the wall, with me conveniently present to overhear, that a great flood was coming, that I should tear down my house, and used the materials to build a boat. Not just any boat, but a massive vessel, big enough to hold my family, craftsmen to help rebuild civilization, and 2 of every animal on Earth. I thought I was going mad, but the voice was insistent, detailed, specific. It told me exact measurements. It told me how to waterproof the boat with bitumen. It told me how much time I had before the rains would come. And something in that voice compelled belief. So I did as instructed. My neighbors thought I was insane. They mocked me as I tore down my beautiful house and began constructing this enormous boat, far from any water deep enough to float it. They laughed as I gathered animals. They made jokes about the crazy old boat builder who thought the sky was falling. But I continued, driven by faith in a voice from a wall, by fear of divine judgment, by the desperate hope that I could save my family from a disaster I could not fully understand. It took me 7 days to build the boat, working day and night with hired craftsmen who accepted my money even as they doubted my sanity. On the 7th day, as the sun set, I loaded my family aboard, along with the animals we had gathered, along with seeds and tools and everything we would need to restart civilization. And then the rains came. Utnapishtim paused, and his eyes grew dark with memory. It was not rain as you understand it, Gilgamesh. It was as if the sky itself had torn open. Water fell in sheets so thick you could not see through them. The wind howled like all the demons of the underworld had been released at once. Lightning split the sky every moment, and thunder was continuous, deafening, driving us to huddle in terror in the depths of the boat. For 6 days and 7 nights, the storm raged. The waters rose higher and higher. Cities were swallowed. Mountains were covered. Everything that lived and breathed outside our boat died. The screaming of the drowning filled the air at first, but eventually, there was only silence and the endless drumming of rain. Even the gods were terrified by what they had unleashed. I heard later that they cowered in the highest heaven, afraid that the flood would reach even them, that they had destroyed not just humanity but all of creation. On the 7th day, the rain stopped. The wind died. The waters began to recede. Our boat came to rest on the peak of Mount Nimish. I opened a window and released a dove to see if there was dry land anywhere. It returned. I released a swallow. It returned. Finally, I released a raven, and it did not return, meaning it had found somewhere to land, somewhere the waters had receded enough for life to resume. We emerged from the boat into a world that had been scoured clean. Everything was gone. Every city, every farm, every person we had ever known. The entire world was mud and silence. We were the only humans left alive, the only survivors of divine judgment. I made offerings to the gods, grateful to be alive, terrified of their power. And they came, drawn by the smell of the sacrifice. They gathered around my altar like starving beggars, because no one had made offerings to them in 6 days. No one had worshipped, prayed, given them the attention they craved. And they realized what they had done. They had destroyed their worshippers. They had eliminated the very beings whose devotion gave their existence meaning. Enlil was furious when he saw that we had survived. He saw it as a betrayal, a violation of the divine decree. But Ea defended me. He argued that I had been rewarded for piety, for obedience to a divine command. The other gods agreed. They could not punish me for doing what a god had told me to do, even if that god had used a technicality to circumvent their decision. So Enlil, in his wisdom or his spite, decided on a different solution. He would grant me and my wife immortality, but he would send us here, to the edge of the world, beyond the waters of death, where no mortal could reach us. We would live forever, yes, but in exile, in isolation, apart from the very humanity we had helped to preserve. It was a reward and a punishment combined. And here we have remained for centuries beyond counting, watching the world from a distance, unable to participate, unable to die. Utnapishtim fell silent. His wife reached over and took his hand, a gesture of comfort born from centuries of shared isolation. Gilgamesh sat frozen, processing the story, trying to find in it some key, some secret he could use. So you gained immortality through divine intervention, through being in the right place at the right time, through surviving a catastrophe that will never be repeated. There is no secret I can learn, no trial I can complete, No way for me to achieve what you achieved. Exactly. My immortality was not earned. It was not a reward for heroism or strength or virtue. It was an accident of divine politics and timing. It cannot be replicated. You have traveled across the world for nothing, Gilgamesh. There is no secret to give you, no path to follow, no way for you to escape death. Gilgamesh felt something breaking inside him. All the suffering, all the journeys, all the hope, all of it crashing down at once. He had come so far, lost so much, and there was nothing here. No answer, no solution, no way to save himself from the fate that had claimed Enkidu. Then what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live knowing that everything ends? That everyone I love will die? That I will die? You live anyway. You live because that is what humans do. You find meaning not in eternal life, but in the life you have. You honor those who have died by living well, by being the best version of yourself you can be, by ruling your city justly, by loving those who remain, by creating beauty and order and meaning in a world that is inherently chaotic and temporary. That is not enough. That will never be enough. Then you have not yet learned the lesson that all humans must learn, Gilgamesh. But you will. Time will teach you what I cannot. Utnapishtim's wife looked at her husband, and then at Gilgamesh. Her voice, when she spoke, was gentle but firm. My husband speaks truly, but perhaps he is too harsh. You have come so far, suffered so much. Let us at least test you. Let us give you a chance to prove that you could handle immortality, even if we cannot actually grant it. What kind of test? A simple one. If you wish to live forever, you must prove you can conquer sleep. Sleep is death's little brother, after all. Every night when you close your eyes, you surrender consciousness, give up control, become vulnerable. If you cannot even stay awake for a week, how can you claim to be strong enough to live forever? Sit here, Gilgamesh. Do not sleep for 7 days and 7 nights. If you can do this, then perhaps there is some small magic we can offer you. Something that will not grant true immortality, but might extend your life beyond normal human span. Gilgamesh's exhaustion was profound. He had crossed the tunnel of darkness, the waters of death, endured journey after journey. Every muscle ached. His eyes burned with fatigue. But this was a test, a chance, perhaps the only one he would get. He nodded. I accept. I will not sleep. I will prove my strength. He sat down, intending to keep watch, to stay alert. Utnapishtim and his wife moved away to prepare food. And Gilgamesh, despite his best intentions, despite his determination, despite every effort of will, felt his eyes growing heavy. The exhaustion was too much. The journey had taken too much from him. His head nodded forward. His eyes closed. And he slept. He slept as the dead sleep, deeply and dreamlessly. Utnapishtim's wife, seeing him collapse into unconsciousness, looked at her husband sadly. The poor fool. He could not stay awake for even an hour. How did he imagine he could conquer death, when he cannot even conquer sleep? Make a loaf of bread for each day he sleeps. Place them by his side. When he wakes, he will claim he only closed his eyes for a moment. The bread will show him the truth. She did as her husband suggested. Each day, she baked a loaf of bread and placed it beside the sleeping Gilgamesh. The first loaf was fresh. The second began to grow stale. The third showed spots of mold. The fourth hardened. The fifth turned green with mold. The sixth grew black and inedible. And on the 7th day, as she placed the 7th fresh loaf, Gilgamesh stirred and opened his eyes. I am ready for the test. Let us begin. Utnapishtim gestured to the 7 loaves of bread in various states of decay. The test is over, Gilgamesh. You failed. You have slept for 7 days and 7 nights. These loaves are the proof. Each one represents a day of sleep. Look at them. See how they have aged while you slumbered. See how you surrendered to the very thing you claimed to conquer. No, no, that is not possible. I only closed my eyes for a moment. I was resting, not sleeping. Look at the bread, Gilgamesh. Look at your failure. You cannot even stay awake for a week, and yet you think you deserve to live forever? You are mortal, Gilgamesh. Accept it. You are strong. You are brave. You are 2/3 divine. But you are still mortal, and mortality means limits. It means weakness. It means, eventually, death. Gilgamesh stared at the loaves of bread, at the undeniable evidence of his failure, and something inside him finally broke completely. He had failed. He had traveled across the world, suffered every hardship, crossed every impossible barrier, only to fail at a simple test of staying awake. All his strength meant nothing. All his divine blood meant nothing. He was mortal, limited, doomed. And there was nothing he could do about it. He wept, not silently, not with dignity, but with great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. He wept for Enkidu, for himself, for the futility of his quest, for the inevitability of death. He wept as he had never wept before, releasing grief that had been building since the moment his friend had died. The journey back across the waters of death was uneventful. Gilgamesh clutched the plant to his chest the entire time, hardly daring to believe he had actually succeeded in gaining something from his quest. He planned how he would use it. Perhaps he would test it on an old man in Uruk first, to make certain it worked. Then he would eat it himself, becoming young again, ruling with the wisdom of his years and the vigor of youth. Perhaps he could even find Enkidu's grave, and wish that somehow the plant could bring his friend back too, though he knew that was impossible. They reached the far shore, the same gray beach where they had begun. Gilgamesh thanked Shinabi and began the long journey back. He retraced his steps through the strange lands between worlds, through the garden of the gods, where Siduri waved at him from her eternal tavern, through the tunnel under the mountain, where the scorpion people nodded in acknowledgement of his survival. Weeks passed as he traveled. He moved more slowly now, tired but hopeful, carrying his precious plant wrapped carefully in cloth. He stopped at an oasis to rest, to wash the dirt and blood of his journey from his body. He placed the plant carefully on the shore, visible but out of the way, and entered the water. It felt glorious to be clean again. He ducked his head under the water, washing away months of grime and suffering. When he emerged, gasping and refreshed, he heard something, a sound he had not heard in months. Laughter. Human laughter. He looked toward the sound and saw them, a group of travelers who had made camp at the oasis. They were eating, talking, enjoying each other's company. They seemed so carefree, so content with their simple lives. Something about the scene made him smile despite himself. This was what he had been fighting for in a way. The right of humans to live, to laugh, to enjoy the small pleasures of existence. He turned to retrieve his plant, to show these travelers what he had achieved, to share his triumph. And his heart stopped. A snake, an enormous serpent, drawn by the scent of the magical plant, had emerged from the rocks. As Gilgamesh watched in horror, frozen by disbelief, the snake took the plant in its mouth and slithered away toward the water. And as it entered the water, something miraculous and terrible happened. The snake's old skin split and fell away, revealing new, young skin beneath. The serpent had been transformed, had gained the gift of eternal youth that could shed its age and begin again with each new skin. The plant was gone. His second chance was gone. Everything he had suffered, everything he had endured, all the hope that had sustained him through the journey home, vanished in the time it took for a snake to steal and consume what should have been his salvation. Gilgamesh fell to his knees and screamed. Not words, just pure sound, pure anguish, pure rage at the unfairness of it all. The travelers at the oasis looked over in concern but did not approach. There was something in that scream that warned them to keep their distance, something that spoke of suffering too profound for consolation. When he finally stopped screaming, he simply knelt there, staring at the spot where the plant had been. He felt empty, hollow, defeated in a way that no enemy had ever defeated him. He had lost everything. Enkidu was dead. Immortality was impossible. Youth was stolen. He had nothing left except himself, and that hardly seemed enough. For a long time, he knelt there. Hours, perhaps. The sun moved across the sky. The travelers at the oasis packed up and left, giving him a wide berth. And slowly, very slowly, something changed inside Gilgamesh. Not hope exactly, not acceptance, but something. A shift in perspective. A recognition. He had been focused on what he had lost, but perhaps he should focus on what he still had. He was alive. He was healthy. He had a city to return to, people who depended on him, a kingdom to rule. He had memories of Enkidu, of their adventures, of their friendship. Those memories could not be taken from him by any snake or god or force in creation. They were his, eternal in their own way, carved into his soul deeper than any words carved into stone. And he had learned something about mortality, about meaning, about what truly mattered. The journey had not given him immortality, but it had given him wisdom. And perhaps wisdom was the better gift, even if it did not feel that way right now. He stood slowly, his body aching, his heart heavy, but not quite broken. He looked toward the west, toward Uruk, toward home. It was time to return, not as a triumphant hero who had conquered death, but as a man who had tried and failed and learned something from the failure. Perhaps that was enough. Perhaps it had to be enough. He began to walk, one foot in front of the other, toward home, toward the life that remained, toward whatever future awaited him. The quest for immortality was over, but the quest to live well, to rule well, to honor the dead by living meaningfully, that quest was just beginning. And perhaps it had always been the more important quest. He just had not been ready to see it until now. The sun set behind him as he walked. The stars emerged, countless and eternal, mocking and beautiful at once. Gilgamesh walked beneath them, mortal and temporary and small in the vastness of creation. But he walked. He continued. He did not give up. And in that moment, he was more heroic than he had ever been when fighting demons or divine bulls. Because this was the hardest victory of all, the victory over despair, over meaninglessness, over the temptation to surrender in the face of inevitable defeat. This was the victory that defined humanity, that separated humans from animals and gods alike. The choice to continue despite knowing the end, to create meaning despite the universe's indifference, to love despite the certainty of loss. Gilgamesh walked on through the night, leaving the oasis and the snake and his dreams of immortality behind. He walked toward the dawn, toward Uruk, toward whatever remained of his life. And for the first time since Enkidu's death, he did not walk in darkness. He walked in the difficult, painful, beautiful light of truth. And that, perhaps, was worth all the suffering. Perhaps that was the only immortality mortals were ever meant to have. The journey back to Uruk took months. Gilgamesh traveled alone, without the urgency that had driven him when he set out. He was in no hurry now. There was nothing waiting for him except responsibility, duty, and the slow passage of years toward an inevitable end. But he walked anyway, because that was what one did. One continued. One endured. Along the way, he saw the world differently than he had before. Where once he had seen only obstacles to overcome and challenges to conquer, now he saw the simple beauty of existence. A sunset was no longer just the end of a day, but a magnificent display of color that would never be exactly the same again. A meal shared with strangers at a roadside fire was no longer an inconvenience, but a moment of human connection, brief and precious. Even pain had its own meaning now, reminding him that he was alive, that he could still feel, that he existed in this moment in this place. He passed through villages where people did not know who he was. They saw only a weathered traveler, his clothes tattered, his face lined with hardship. They offered him food and shelter, and he accepted with gratitude he had never felt before. In one village, an old woman gave him bread and asked him where he was going. Home. I am going home. You have traveled far, I think. You have the look of one who has seen too much and learned too much, and is not entirely happy about either. That is very perceptive, grandmother. When you are as old as I am, you learn to read faces. Tell me, did you find what you were looking for? Gilgamesh thought about this for a long moment. No, I did not. But I think perhaps I found something else. Something I was not looking for, but needed to find. That is often how wisdom comes. We seek one thing and discover another. The gods are subtle in their teachings. Go home, traveler. Whatever is waiting for you there, face it with the strength you have gained from your journey. That is all any of us can do. He thanked her and continued on. And with each mile, with each day, he felt something shifting inside him. Not healing exactly. The grief for Enkidu was still there, would always be there. but it was becoming part of him rather than the entirety of him. He was learning to carry it, to live with it, to honor his friend's memory not through futile quests for immortality, but through becoming the kind of man Enkidu had believed he could be. Finally, after months of travel, the walls of Uruk appeared on the horizon. Those massive walls he had built, those monuments to his pride and power. They looked different now. Smaller somehow, despite their immensity. Or perhaps he had become larger, expanded by his journey and his failures into something that could not be contained by walls, no matter how mighty. He approached the gates at sunset. The guards on duty did not recognize him at first. This ragged, sunburned man with tangled hair and worn clothing looked nothing like their king. But then one of them looked closer, saw something in the eyes, in the bearing, and fell to his knees. My lord Gilgamesh, you have returned. We thought you dead. We thought you lost forever. The cry went up, spreading through the city like wildfire. The king has returned. Gilgamesh lives. He came back. People poured into the streets, rushing toward the gates. They had mourned him, had given him up for lost. And now here he was, changed but alive, defeated but unbroken. His mother Ninsun pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her divine face. She embraced him, holding him as if he were still a child, as if she could protect him from all the suffering of the world through the sheer force of her love. My son, I prayed every day for your return. I begged Shamash to watch over you. And he did. He brought you back to me. He brought me back, yes, but not unchanged. Not the same man who left. No one who journeys as you have journeyed returns unchanged. Come, let us go to the palace. Let me care for you. Let me heal your wounds. Some wounds cannot be healed, mother. Some losses cannot be recovered. But yes, let us go home. I am tired, so very tired. They walked through the streets of Uruk, and the people lined the way, calling out, reaching to touch him, to confirm that he was real. Some wept, some celebrated. All were changed by his return, though they could not yet say how or why. In the palace, servants prepared baths and food. They brought fresh clothing, royal robes that felt strange after months of wearing simple traveler's garb. Gilgamesh allowed himself to be bathed, dressed, fed, all the while moving as if in a dream. This opulence, this luxury, it seemed so distant from the truths he had learned in the wilderness, in the garden of the gods, in Utnapishtim's simple dwelling. That night, he stood on the terrace, where he had stood with Enkidu so many times, looking out over the city. The stars were bright overhead, the same stars that had watched him weep at the oasis, that had illuminated his journey home. Ninsun joined him, bringing wine, standing beside him in companionable silence. Tell me about your journey, if you wish. Tell me what you found. I found that immortality is impossible for mortals. I found that even crossing the world, suffering every hardship, passing every test, means nothing if the goal itself is beyond reach. I found a plant that could restore youth, and I lost it to a snake. I found Utnapishtim, and he told me I was a fool. And he was right, mother. I was a fool. You were not a fool. You were grieving. You were afraid. Those are not the same as foolishness. Perhaps, but the result is the same. I gained nothing. Enkidu is still dead. I am still mortal. And all the time I spent seeking immortality was time I could have spent ruling Uruk, serving my people, honoring my friend's memory through good deeds rather than selfish quests. And yet, look at you now. You are different. The son who left Uruk was proud, certain, unbroken by life. The son who returned is humbler, wiser, more truly human despite his divine blood. Perhaps that is what you gained. Perhaps that is what you were meant to find all along. Gilgamesh considered this, sipping his wine, feeling its warmth spread through his body. Siduri, the tavern keeper, told me something similar. She said that mortality gives life meaning, that the gods, who live forever, find their days empty and repetitive. But we mortals, precisely because we will die, can make each moment precious. I did not believe her then. I thought it was just something people say to comfort themselves about the inevitable. But now I think perhaps she was right. What changed your mind? Losing the plant. When the snake took it, when my last hope was stolen, I felt something break inside me. But then, slowly, I realized that even without the plant, even without immortality, I was still alive. I still had choices. I could still decide what to do with whatever time remains to me. And that choice, that agency, that is perhaps more valuable than eternal life without meaning. My wise son, you have learned what many never learn. Life is not measured in years, but in moments, in the depth of experience, not the length of existence. Enkidu lived fewer years than most, but he lived deeply. He loved, he fought, he learned, he grew. His life had meaning. And yours does too, Gilgamesh. Whether you live 10 more years or 50, what matters is what you do with them. Then I must do better than I did before. I must be the king Uruk deserves, not the tyrant I was, taking what I wanted without thought for others, not the hero I became, seeking glory for its own sake, but something else. A king who understands that power is responsibility, that strength is meant to protect, not to dominate, that leadership is service, not privilege. That is a worthy goal. But do not be too hard on yourself, my son. You are still learning, still growing. That is the gift of mortality. We never stop becoming. The gods, unchanging and eternal, are finished. But you, with your limited time, you get to evolve, to improve, to transform yourself until your very last breath. That is beautiful in its way. Perhaps, though it would be easier if transformation did not hurt so much. The worthwhile things usually hurt, Gilgamesh. Love hurts. Growth hurts. Wisdom hurts. But they are worth the pain. You know that now. You learned it through suffering, and that makes the lesson real in a way that easy knowledge never could be. They stood together in silence, mother and son, goddess and mortal, watching the stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance. Below them, Uruk slept, unaware of the transformation taking place in their king's heart. Tomorrow he would begin his new reign, his new approach to leadership. But tonight, he simply stood and breathed and existed, grateful to be alive, grateful to have learned something worth knowing, even at such terrible cost. The days that followed were unlike any Uruk had known. Gilgamesh threw himself into governance with an intensity he had never shown before. But it was different from his earlier energy. Before, he had focused on monuments, on building projects that would immortalize his name. Now he focused on people, on justice, on fairness, on creating systems that would outlast him not because they bore his name, but because they served the common good. He walked the streets of Uruk, talking to citizens, listening to their concerns. He reformed laws that were unjust, removed corrupt officials, ensured that the strong could not simply prey upon the weak. He was still a powerful king, still commanded respect and obedience. But now his power was tempered with wisdom, his strength balanced by compassion. The people noticed. They spoke in whispers at first, then more openly. The king has changed. He is different since his return. He is better, kinder, more just, more human. He commissioned scribes to record the story of his journey, every detail of his quest for immortality and its failure. He wanted future generations to know the truth, not just the glorious victories over Humbaba and the Bull of Heaven, but also the grief, the desperation, the ultimate failure, and the wisdom gained from that failure. Write it all down. Do not make me seem heroic when I was foolish. Do not hide my weaknesses or my tears. Future kings should learn from my mistakes, not repeat them. If my story can teach even one person that life's meaning comes from living well rather than living forever, then my suffering will not have been in vain. The scribes worked for years on the epic, and it became one of the great treasures of Uruk, copied and recopied, told and retold, spreading far beyond the city's walls. The Epic of Gilgamesh, they called it, the story of a king who was two-thirds divine but learned to be truly human. Gilgamesh created a memorial for Enkidu in the center of the city. Not just a statue, though there was that, but also a garden, a place of peace and reflection where anyone could come to remember those they had lost, to find comfort in shared grief, to understand that they were not alone in their suffering. He visited the garden often, speaking to Enkidu's memory, telling him about the changes in the city, asking for guidance even though no answer came. You would be proud, brother. Or perhaps you would laugh at me. I am trying to be the king you believed I could be. the one who uses his strength to protect rather than to dominate. It is harder than fighting demons, harder than crossing the waters of death. But it is the right kind of hard, the kind that makes me better rather than just more powerful. Years passed. Gilgamesh grew older, his hair turning gray, his face becoming lined. The body that had been so perfect, so divinely beautiful, began to show the marks of time. His hands developed calluses from holding tools of governance rather than weapons of war. His eyes, once hard with certainty, became softer with understanding. He trained successors, ensuring that when he died, the kingdom would not fall into chaos. He taught them not just the skills of rule, but the wisdom he had gained. He told them about Enkidu, about the quest, about the lessons that came from failure. Remember this above all: you are mortal. Your time is limited. Do not waste it seeking to escape that limitation. Embrace it. Let it drive you to live well, to rule justly, to create meaning in the time you have. That is the only immortality that matters. Not living forever, but maturing deeply while you live. One evening, many years after his return, Gilgamesh stood once more on the palace terrace. He was an old man now, though still strong, still vital. His mother stood beside him, unchanged by time, eternally youthful, eternally divine. I am dying, mother. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. I can feel it. The weight of years, the slow failing of this body. And I am not afraid. I am glad, my son. Fear of death consumed you for so long. I am happy you have found peace with it. Not peace, exactly. I would still prefer to live. There are still projects I wish to complete, people I wish to help, days I wish to see. But I understand now that death is not a failure. It is simply the end of a story. And stories need endings. Without them, they have no shape, no meaning, no impact. You have become wise, Gilgamesh. Truly wise. Not with the wisdom of the gods, who know everything but understand little, but with the wisdom of mortals, who know they know nothing but understand what truly matters. I learned from the best teacher there is, suffering, and from the second best, love. Enkidu taught me to love. His death taught me to grieve. My quest taught me to fail, and failure taught me to live. I would not change any of it, even the pain, even the loss. It made me who I am. And who are you, Gilgamesh? If you had to describe yourself now, what would you say? He thought for a long moment. Looking out over the city he had ruled for so many years. I am a man who tried to be a god and learned to be human instead. I am a friend who loved and lost, and learned that love matters more than loss. I am a king who sought eternal fame and discovered that serving well is more important than being remembered. I am mortal, limited, temporary. And that is enough. That is everything. Nin's son embraced her son, tears falling from her divine eyes. I am proud of you, my son. More proud than I can express. You have become something rare. A hero who transcended heroism. A king who became a servant. A demigod who chose humanity. That is worth more than any immortality. Thank you, mother, for everything. For your love, your patience, your wisdom. I could not have asked for a better guide through this difficult life. They stood together as the sun set, painting the sky in colors that would never be exactly replicated, that existed only in this moment, in this time, and were all the more beautiful for their transience. Gilgamesh continued to rule for several more years. He saw his successors grow into their roles. He saw the systems he had created take root and flourish. He saw Uruk become not just a great city, but a just one, a place where power served people rather than enslaving them. And then, on a quiet morning in early spring, Gilgamesh felt a change. He woke knowing, with the certainty that only comes at the very end, that this was his last day. He rose calmly, dressed in his finest robes, and went about his duties as if it were any other day. He settled disputes, approved plans for new construction, spoke with advisors. But there was a finality to everything he did, a sense of wrapping up, of completing the story. In the afternoon, he walked to Enkidu's memorial garden. He sat beneath the trees they had planted in his friend's memory, listening to the fountain, watching the birds. And he spoke, one final time, to the friend he would soon join in whatever darkness or light awaited beyond death. I kept my promise, brother. I lived well. I ruled justly. I honored your memory not through monuments, but through actions, through becoming the kind of man you believed I could be. I do not know if there is anything after death. I do not know if you can hear me. But if you can, know this. I am ready. I am not afraid. I am grateful for the time we had, for the lessons you taught me, for the love you showed me. I am coming to find you now, Enkidu, not through mystical plants or divine intervention, but through the natural path that all mortals walk. And when I arrive in whatever place the dead inhabit, I hope to find you there, waiting, ready to share one more adventure. This one, the final one, the one from which there is no return. But until then, until that last breath, I will continue to live, to breathe, to be. That is all any of us can do. That is all any of us should want to do. Not to live forever, but to live fully. Not to escape death, but to embrace life. That is the secret I traveled the world to learn. That is the wisdom that cost me everything and gave me everything. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for showing me what matters. Thank you for your friendship, your courage, your love. I will carry you in my heart to whatever lies beyond. And that, I think, is immortality enough for both of us. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face, hearing the sound of water and birds and children playing somewhere in the distance. He felt peace, not the absence of pain or fear or regret, but something deeper, acceptance, wholeness, the sense that his story, while ending, was complete, that he had lived, truly lived, and that was enough. Servants found him an hour later, still sitting beneath the tree, a slight smile on his weathered face. The king of Uruk, the hero who had killed demons and traveled to the edge of the world, the man who had sought immortality and learned to embrace mortality, was dead. The city mourned, not with the desperate grief they had shown at Enkidu's death, but with a deeper, more profound sorrow, the sorrow of knowing that something irreplaceable had passed from the world. They gave him a funeral worthy of his achievements, buried him with honors, built monuments to his memory. But the true monument was not stone or gold. It was the city he had left behind, the laws that protected the weak, the systems that ensured justice, the stories that would be told for generations, the example he had set of how even the mighty must learn humility, how even the divine must learn to be human. In the heavens, the gods watched and were silent. Enlil, who had demanded Enkidu's death, said nothing. Ishtar, who had sent the bull of heaven, said nothing. Even Anu, father of gods, simply observed without comment. But Shamash, the sun god who had protected Gilgamesh throughout his quest, spoke quietly to the assembled divine host. There lies a mortal who became more than mortal through choosing to be fully human. He could have cursed us, could have raged against the limits we placed on him, could have died in bitterness. But instead he accepted, learned, grew. He shows that humanity, for all its weakness, has a strength we gods can never possess. The strength to transform suffering into wisdom, to find meaning in limitation, to love despite knowing loss is inevitable. And what does that matter? Enlil asked. He is dead. All his wisdom dies with him. All his learning means nothing now. No, Shamash replied. His wisdom lives on in his city, in his laws, in the story of his life. That is immortality, Enlil. Not eternal life, but eternal impact. Not living forever, but maturing forever. He understood what you do not. That meaning is created through how we live, not how long we live. The gods fell silent, contemplating this. And below, in Uruk, life continued. People were born, people died. Seasons cycled. Years passed. But the story of Gilgamesh endured, told and retold, growing richer with each telling. And in each telling, people learned the lesson he had learned. That life's meaning comes not from its length, but from its depth. Not from avoiding death, but from living fully until death arrives. And so the tale ends. Not with triumph over death, but with acceptance of it. Not with the hero gaining immortality, but with him learning that immortality was never what he truly needed. The epic of Gilgamesh, the story of a king who learned to be a man, a hero who learned to be human, a seeker who found not what he searched for, but what he truly needed. He lived, he loved, he lost, he learned, and in the end, that was enough. That was everything. That was the only victory that mattered, the only immortality worth having. Remember this story. Remember its lessons. Remember that you, too, are mortal. And let that knowledge not paralyze you with fear, but liberate you to live deeply, love fully, and create meaning in the brief, beautiful span of years you have been granted. For in the end, we are all Gilgamesh, all seeking something beyond our reach, all grieving losses we cannot undo, all learning, slowly and painfully, that the answer is not out there in some distant place, but here, now, in how we choose to live each day. This is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is the oldest story ever told, and it endures because it speaks truth, the truth that we are mortal, the truth that we will lose those we love, the truth that death is inevitable, and the truth that despite all this, or perhaps because of all this, life is worth living. Life is precious. Life is beautiful. Live well. Love fully. Accept what cannot be changed, and create meaning in the time you have. That is the wisdom of Gilgamesh. That is the lesson he paid so dearly to learn. And that is the gift he gives to all of us who hear his story and understand that we are not so different from him. We are all heroes of our own impossible quests. We are all mourning losses we cannot recover. We are all seeking answers we may never find. But we can all, like Gilgamesh, choose to transform our suffering into wisdom, our grief into compassion, our mortality into motivation to live as fully and as well as we possibly can. This is the end of a story, but it is also the beginning of your own epic, your own journey, your own quest to find meaning in a temporary life. Go forth and live it well. That is the only command that matters. That is the only victory worth seeking. The Epic of Gilgamesh is complete. Let it be remembered. Let it be told. Let it teach us what it taught him. That we are mortal, that we are limited, that we will die, and that none of that diminishes us. It only makes us human. And to be human, truly human, is the greatest adventure of all.